for the win. Kick is blocked. And SMU falls on it, and we're going to overtime.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Genty, the Clydesdales are in. Is Genty in? No signal yet. No signal
this
yet.
Is so close.
On 4th and goal. Officials are there. Touchdown!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And Reed looking to throw. Nope, not for long. Takes off running and will spin down near the goal line. And they will shove him into the end zone for a touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here comes a trick play and a throwback to Ward. This will help his numbers. A touchdown catch. And his 28th touchdown responsible for. It's the tight end Elijah Arroyo with the pass.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
On 3rd down and 7, here comes the pressure. Retzloff reads it, gets up through it. He's got a first down inside the red zone, still going, and he's gone for the touchdown. 29-yard scramble for Jake Retzloff.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we are on a Monday after yet another pretty damn good weekend in college football. David Smoak with Paul Catalina to my left and Craig Smoak to my right in the studio today with Garrett, Emery, and Jack. We've got a lot to get to. Sometimes you can get into Monday and just you're overwhelmed by how much there is to talk about. So we'll try to put it into various clumps, from what's going on with the Big 12 to what's happening with the top 25 to also some other news and notes around the college football landscape. If whatever we don't get to between now and when we have Ari Temkin at 340 Big 12 Radio, we will at 4 o'clock. Bryce Petty, former Baylor quarterback. This is the week they play TCU, honoring 2013-14 Big 12 championship teams. And Phil Bennett will join us today at 5. Paul's top 5 at the end of the show. Let's start with this. The Big 12 standings, just right there smack on your screen. BYU, they won again, and they were comfortable. Iowa State, and then you have K-State after their down-to-the-wire win against Kansas, but they found a way to get it done. Colorado, man, they got a heartbeat. And a note from Dion about this in just a minute. Cincinnati, and then TCU with that dramatic win against Tech. A gut-wrenching loss for Tech and Joey McGuire. And then you have West Virginia, Arizona State, Baylor, Houston, and all the way down Oklahoma State, 0-5. Utah, 1-4. Arizona, 1-4. Kansas, 1-4. UCF, these are teams, not UCF as much at the top, but a lot of those teams, Paul, we thought would be in the mix to win or play for the Big 12 title.
You know, this is it's quite the thing where you look at this and you say this is like it's upside down from where we thought it would be almost completely. When you look at outside of Iowa State, who I thought would be in the middle, and Kansas State, who I thought would be about where they are, if not higher, but you know, Oklahoma State, Kansas, UCF, Utah, all at the bottom. Arizona at the bottom. We thought that was it. And then everything else, it's like it goes in reverse order of what we thought it would be all the way around. So, yeah, it's fantastic for the league to have such fluidity and be a week-to-week league where you don't know what's going to happen. But, you know, when you look at some of the other things going on, particularly with UCF, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, I don't know if they could have written worse seasons for themselves.
Yeah, we saw Oklahoma State up personal. We'll get to that game in a moment, with Baylor winning back-to-back games to get to 4-4.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people having fun at the predictions at the beginning of the season and where they actually are now. We still have a month left to play out. Clearly, there's going to be teams like Utah and Oklahoma State that are going to be on the total opposite of where they started out, and they're going to remain there. There's just not much hope that that's going to turn around, and they're certainly not going to find themselves back near the top. But I think the kind of puzzling thing to me, guys, is, yeah, like, let's dunk on the media for being wrong. Like KU, that was way off, and Oklahoma State, that was way off. But my thought when I've seen this, because now it's become sort of like a trend where anybody who talks about the Big 12 has posted the standings in like the last 4 days, and they're like, see? Including us.
Yep.
But were we not talking about how this is the most unpredictable league where any week everybody can beat everybody, and there's no, like, we were doing preseason predictions like, I don't freaking know. Like, it could be this team. So, like, it's a situation where, yeah, the media got it wrong, but if you look at it based on the way we talked about the league, that's kind of what you were expecting, was to be wrong, because you really had no idea what to expect out of a lot of these teams because of the integration of the 4 Pac schools and just the number of questions surrounding a lot of schools like Baylor or, pick a team. They had a lot of questions. And then, the thing that you can't account for, though, is the schools that you thought had a lot of answers certainly didn't. And that's what's made this look so upside down, particularly Oklahoma State, particularly Kansas, particularly Utah, and then to an extent Arizona as well. So I think there's a little bit of both. I think it's like, yeah, the media was way off. I also think that's kind of what you thought coming in, was that this was going to be the unpredictable, wild league that was going to come down to the wire in most of their games every week, and that's what we've seen. So I think it's good from an entertainment standpoint. I think there's some detriment to it when it comes to a championship standpoint. I think you've got 2, maybe 3 real contenders. Colorado, I don't think is a playoff team at this point, and I think Kansas State's really got their work cut out for them. So I think you're really looking at 2 playoff contenders, and that's the 2 unbeatens. That can change, obviously, but that is also a byproduct of being so close, is that you might knock yourself out of a lot of big situations.
No, it's and you know what? In the next 4 weeks, you said there's 4 weeks. All hell could break loose a couple of times during that 4-week stretch, even before AT&T Stadium hosts the game on December the 7th. So let's look at a couple of stories. UCF making some staff changes. UCF head coach Gus Malzahn has fired defensive coordinator Ted Roof, and also relinquishing play-calling duties to Tim Harris Jr.
Well, something's got to give, because they're not good at all right now. They've lost 5 games in a row, and after that TCU game, you thought, oh, man, this is a team that's got some moxie. They've got something. Their defense is as bad as you can imagine. Well, it's not as bad. There's a team that I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute that's got a worse defense than them. But, yeah, have to do it. This is, relinquishing play calling duties is essentially changing your coordinator, right? Okay, and change your defensive coordinator in season. That means next year Gus is on the clock. I don't think it's imminent this year, but next year, Gus is on the clock at UCF. They're in a new league. They're trying to make big moves, and they keep losing games that they're leading, or just getting blown out because their defense isn't good. So I'll be interested to see who is the defensive coordinator for UCF next season.
When you are a head coach that is a coordinator, and in this case, Gus Malzahn, known for his offense, play calling, and all of that, to sit there and give that up, that's hard to do. It's hard to admit it, and he has done that. And now Tim Harris will take over the play calling duties, because they're kind of stuck in the mud. They had the almost took down to the wire win, not this weekend but last. But yeah, they need a spark.
Well, yeah, Addison Williams is going to call defensive plays as they replace Ted Roof, who's obviously had a bad couple of years at Oklahoma. That was a very short stint. That did not work out well, and then turns around, goes to UCF, and that doesn't last long either. So you're going to have a different play caller, obviously, on the defensive side with Addison Williams. And then, Gus on the offensive side, handing the reins to Tim Harris Jr. So you've effectively replaced both your coordinators. And you also have a question mark at quarterback. That's a big question, and a question that's haunted you throughout the year with Tim Rizek coming in. Not Tim Rizek, but was Dylan Rizek. Yeah, Dylan Rizek. Tim was talking about Tim Harris Jr., but Dylan Rizek coming into the game late for Ja'Curry Brown, who was struggling, and KJ Jefferson was struggling, and the quarterback position as a whole has been a struggle. And then you see Rizek, and they had some UCF fans going like, well, where's this guy been? And so they're questioning everything, and rightfully so. When you're on a big losing streak like they are, they're searching for answers, trying to replace what they can, trying to put guys in positions to win in these last 4 games. But it's been a messy season. It's been an awful season compared to your preseason expectations where you thought at worst you'd be, sort of middle of the pack, and maybe if things fell the right way with your rushing attack, you'd have a chance to compete for the conference. But the defense has been really bad in some cases, and your offense has been really bad, which you certainly didn't expect to necessarily be the case. So you got to do something, and if you can't chop your own, if your own head's not on the chopping block yet, especially because of your contract, like other heads are going to have to roll. So that's what you saw today.
We've discussed it. If you're a head coach and you start firing coordinators, then eventually you look around and you're the only one left that has not moved or been put out to pasture, fired, or maybe demoted. Colorado's they're a bowl team. Deion and Colorado are 6-2. I stayed up as late as I could Saturday night to watch their game. They kind of had it pretty much in hand. Travis Hunter, 132 snaps in that game. This from ESPN's Adam Rittenberg. All of the snaps on defense, all but 3 snaps on offense. 153 yards career high receiving, 100th 100-yard receiving performance. Had knocked away 4 passes and also scored a couple of touchdowns on offense. Shedeur had a big game too, but Travis Hunter putting up huge numbers. He won't be able to do this in the NFL. And that's saying they won't at times have certain packages for him on one side of the ball or the other. But he and Colorado, they're bowl eligible. A lot of people would have bet a lot of money that they would never get the 6 wins.
Yeah, I know they would have. And with Travis Hunter, when it comes to the NFL, I think they just need to let him do what he can do until they find out what he's deficient at. And if he's good at both, then figure out a way to let him do both. I'm sure they'll probably try him out at defense first. And
one thing about the NFL, there's a lot fewer snaps. So that's the first thing. But at the same time, that is a step up. I'm not saying I would not bet against him, but you want to make sure he's always not beat up, bumps and bruises. But he had himself a game.
The coach that needs to draft Travis Hunter is the coach that doesn't have, he is this and this is what he is.
Yeah,
that's what they do. But he's an absolutely amazing, fantastic player. I've used this comparison before. I think we're lucky as hell to get to see him and Ohtani at the same time. It's not 2024, it's 1924 of guys playing both ways, doing everything. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible player. I think he's going to have a seat in New York for the Heisman ceremony, and maybe he'll even win it as well. I know that Dylan Gabriel and a couple other guys are going to have a say in that. I do think he's overshadowing a little bit how good of a year Shedeur is having. I think that kind of gets lost, and the hatred for Shedeur and Deion, or the dislike, and also just the love for Travis Hunter. I think that Shedeur's excellence can kind of get lost in all of the fog of that. So I do want to shout out Shedeur, who was really good again on Saturday, and is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. And we talk about the NFL with Travis Hunter. Well, we need to be talking about with Shedeur, because he might be the first or second quarterback off the board here in about 6-7 months.
His name has climbed up the odds when it comes to the Heisman Trophy now. Yeah,
Hunter's obviously the dude, and deservedly so. Had a huge game receiving. I think his bread and butter still being a defensive back at the next level, but I'll be interested to see kind of what the scouts say as far as his offensive prowess goes, and certainly he flexed that on Saturday night and put another stamp on his Heisman resume. And that turned out to be a pretty competitive game, but ultimately Colorado really controlled that one. They were fully, in grasp of the wheel, I felt like pretty much the entire game, and that was a nice win over Cincinnati. So you're now 6-2, you're 4-1 in the league, and you're right there at the 4th spot in the conference. So you're not expecting Iowa State or Kansas State or BYU to take multiple losses, but if you're Colorado, there's a non-0% chance that you could find your way to Arlington if you keep winning games. So that was a good win over Cincinnati, a good win for the Heisman campaign, and I think a great win if you're Deion and company, if you're thinking back to all those people at the beginning of the year who were already writing you off and saying this and that, and here you are, and you're sitting pretty, and you've made a bowl game. So that's a big accomplishment, and that's a big step forward for that program.
All right, who are they going to be favored against? Play at Texas Tech.
Favored.
Utah, home.
Favored.
Kansas on the road.
Favored.
Oklahoma State at home.
Favored.
Yeah. And again, it's the Big 12, so this all could be flipped upside down like an upside-down pie or cake. But they got through the hardest part of their schedule. Yes, those are still games that they just can't take for granted.
Okay.
But
I want to throw this out about Travis Hunter. Here's the top 5 picks in the draft where he will probably go, you would say, right?
You mean teams?
Yeah, team. Like he's going in the top 5. Okay.
All right. One of them has
to
be.
Right now is Carolina is number 1.
Okay.
Does he?
They any more than him, right?
Yeah, but like he's tempting, especially if they decide Bryce Young is going to be the quarterback next year.
All right.
Okay. Then it's Tennessee, who's probably going to draft a quarterback.
I mean, goodbye to his career if he goes to Carolina, but yeah.
Yeah. Then New England, who just drafted a quarterback. I don't think he gets past them.
Oh, you talking about Shador?
No, I'm talking about
Travis Hunter.
I'm talking about Travis Hunter.
Well, you're talking about quarterback.
Yeah, so I can reasonably see a scenario where, Shedeur Sanders is the second pick and Travis Hunter is the third.
Yeah, I can see both going top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put money on that right this moment, but I could definitely see that. And give me 2 or 3 months, I might put some money on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, those guys have helped, and other things that have been tightened up by Colorado. The coaching staff, which is questioned about what they were doing, they have won. They are 6 wins now, eligible for a bowl game. And I have some feeling that there's I think I had them like 10 or so in my preseason, maybe 10 or 11. You could still get to a bowl game if you're 10th or 11th in the Big 12. But I know a lot of people that did not give them a chance in hell, and so good for them. They're now bowl eligible. Now they have bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, last week I brought up the TV ratings, and there was a comment from Sports Media Watch about the fact that Colorado had like the lowest ratings they'd had in however long it had been, obviously since Deion had been there, so like the last year and a half or whatever it was, and I thought about that over the weekend. I am starting to wonder, and I'm not a big like Deion versus the world guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm starting to wonder if people are tuning out because they are winning. Mm-hmm. Because the joy was in watching them lose for a lot of outside observers. So now they're like winning regularly, and it's like, oh, well, this is not why I'm tuning in is to watch them win games. I'm tuning in to watch them be a total train wreck. And I wonder if that does take away some of the audience because that's the audience that was there to watch them be bad.
They were initially the numbers last year were the newness of it.
Yeah, sure.
And then when they went off and beat TCU, and then of course went 3-0 or whatever, hammered Nebraska. Then I think people got a little bit worn down with all the publicity just because there's some that don't like Deion and the glitz and glamour. And so maybe you're right. Maybe there's this, now they're winning. Well, hell, I'm not going to watch them because they're probably going to win type of stuff. I did. I enjoyed it. They played well and took care of a pretty good team in Cincinnati.
They do suffer, though. That late night window's fun for fans, but I think fortunately Travis Hunter's a big enough star where it doesn't matter. But I do think that there are Heisman voters out on the East Coast that aren't necessarily watching all of the Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders performances because it's going on at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So I see them, but I don't know how many people writing for the New York Times or whatever are watching those games.
Micah Bernard, Utah, another loss. Man, they were going to run the Big 12. Ask any of the Utah fans, and again, I know that's just social media, but they were, and yes, they've had problems at quarterback, but others have too. Can't answer that and why they've fallen apart. I'm not going to answer that. I know what it is, but I'm not going to answer that. I'm sorry, can't. Sorry, appreciate you. There has to be something going on, and I don't know what it might be, but Josh Furlong with that note after the loss that they had, yet another loss over the weekend with Utah.
Yeah, I watched this clip, and it was really weird that it was right at the very beginning of the interview as well. It was he and his teammate were there in the post-game press conference, and he said word for word what that said. And it was just sort of strange because a guy was asking just about like what's off about this team, and he said that right there about, well, we know what it is, but we're not going to say, and respectfully, we're not going to say, and it was just kind of strange, and it wasn't followed up on, and Kyle Whittingham didn't shed any light that I saw or heard, at least in his post-game press conference. He kind of just stuck with the status quo of we need to run the ball better and we need to do this better and that better. So I don't know, but I am curious if it maybe has something, now here we're going to speculate, but is it Isaac Wilson? Is that what they think it is? Is it coaching? Is that what they think it is? Is it the offensive play calling? Because that's, I know, a big issue for Utah fans is the OC. So there's any number of things it could be, especially when you're losing as frequently as they are. But that was one of those that you go, that does not sound good for the culture.
But
what is normally a very good culture.
Which is normally everything's inside those walls, and they just keep chopping at the wood. And that's how I described them, and I think not just me, a lot of people. Kim Coulter, Smoak, you guys missed it. Utah is still waiting for an invite to go to a conference, and it's not who you think, it's the Mountain West Conference. Kim.
Well, we were talking last week about how Utah fans were trying to spin this as best they could, taking these losses. Oh, we had only lost to Pac teams, and then it was TCU doesn't count. That's an old Mountain West team. So now Houston, you lost to Houston.
Yeah,
you lost to Houston.
Yep.
It's
the way Baylor fans felt last year.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Houston's jumped up and they beat TCU.
Yep.
Like they've jumped up. They nearly beat Oklahoma earlier this year, which isn't saying much now, but. Yeah, but Utah fans, if there's one thing that you would have put your entire savings on, would have been, we're not going to lose to Houston. Well, you lost to Houston. So, yeah, they've hit rock bottom. Great win for Willie Fritz and company, but that was a new low, and now it's on BYU's shoulders here in a couple of weeks to keep the pain going, and they seem like they'll be more than ready to do that.
They both have an off week.
Yeah, they have, as I said, a couple weeks.
And November the 9th, they will play in a game that has been much anticipated, even if they were both 1-6 or so. But this is interesting with BYU now will be a heavy favorite.
Well, and one other thing on Utah is not only do they have BYU in a couple of weeks, which, hey, great, you got an open week. Well, so do they. Yep. So that's great. That means nothing then. So you'll just play them, and then you'll go play at Colorado, who's in the top 25 now, and then you'll go home you'll go back home, and then you'll play Iowa State. So those are your next 3 ball games. They're all top 25 opponents as of right now, and then at UCF at the end of the year. So this thing's not done sinking as far as this year goes. And now the big picture questions are, they're probably going to finish 500. How far under 500? And how long is for this world is Kyle Whittingham at this point? That's the big question that's buzzing around, is not only the other changes in the speculation, but like, is the issue that is being referred to, is that like all the way at the top of where it's just not where it needs to be? So that's what happens when you lose, man. Everything's up for speculation, but there's definitely something wrong there.
I have a direct message to Josh Furlong, who covers Utah, if he could try to tell me if anything else has been clarified since what Micah Bernard mentioned. Baylor at home, we will get to the top 25, and of course some of the more impressive wins that we saw, and a couple of, that we saw too. RG3 on Sawyer Robertson, who had yet another nice game in their win over the weekend against Oklahoma State. RG3 talking about how Sawyer was always at his camp during the summer, loves his style. He is really in a good groove because of what he can do by throwing the ball, passing the ball, and also the ability for him to take off and run, which he scored on a long run. It has opened up the run game, and they just mauled Oklahoma State's defense with the run game. Oklahoma State, they played well as far as stayed in it. Both teams did. And you just wonder, who's going to break? Who's going to break? And the Ollie Gordon fumble was a deadly turnover. There's one note about Sawyer Robertson. Let me give you one more. So last week, we had Seth Russell on a week or two ago about the upcoming blackout in the 2013-14 Big 12 teams being honored this weekend. So I made a comment, as did others, about how Sawyer Robertson reminds them, at least his style, kind of the height and the speed and what he does, of Seth Russell. Seth Russell sent me a text today. Hey, man, I heard the call out about the Robertson comparison. Much appreciated, with the heart emoji with Seth Russell.
Yeah, I sat in the end zone and watched this game on Saturday, and I saw a team that I didn't recognize on both sides. I did not recognize that as a Mike Gundy team. That's the worst Mike Gundy team I've ever seen. And I didn't recognize this as Baylor. They ran the ball. They dominated. They played with energy. Now, they tried. Like, it's funny how who I think is becoming their old self still tries to come back out at times where they make mistakes or they don't capitalize. And, look, Brendan Presley for Oklahoma State had an absolutely fantastic game the other day. So sometimes you just can't contain guys that are that good. And I think that was part of it. But Sawyer Robertson is kind of the flashpoint for this beginning. And I was just really impressed with what we saw the other day. Although early on in that game, I was like, man, both these teams are very average. But the difference is Baylor is playing on their way up, and Oklahoma State is just like it's like they fall down a hole, crawl out, walk 10 steps, and there's another hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're kind of just in an eternal fall at this point. I mean, they're at the bottom of the standings, but there's nowhere left to go, and yet they're still falling. So there's just there's no end in sight as far as the bottom goes. You can tell just the pain and the aggravation that's on the side of the Cowboys right now. And there were some good things. Brendan Presley was a freaking monster. Alan Bowman actually didn't play all that bad, but they didn't run the ball well. Baylor shut down the run game. Ollie Gordon's mouthing off the entire time. I know that's what he does, but he had a couple short TDs, and he had the big, massive fumble at the goal line that turned into a Baylor touchdown. Eventually, it was a little bit of a back and forth that followed right after that, but that was a gimme touchdown that he fumbles away. And you look at a game that was a one-score game late until Baylor finally put the cherry on top, and that was an important play, and that was a big turnover. So there were things like that. In general, the running game just not able to really get going, and so it was a bit of a one-dimensional look for the Pokes, and all those yards didn't amount to enough as far as the winning goes, and certainly not when your defense isn't able to get much in the way of stops either. So, yeah, it was good from the passing perspective, but the rest of it left a lot to be desired, and, that's just Oklahoma State in 2024. They're just on a bad run, and I don't know when it stops, but Saturday they had some opportunities, and they just had too many penalties and too little to stack up against the Bears. So for Baylor, that was a really important win for a multitude of reasons. And right at the top was the fact that they went and finished the game, and they won a home game. And they did both on Saturday, and those were big steps forward for them because they haven't been winning close games, and they haven't been winning games like Oklahoma State at home. So they knocked both of those off the to-do list, and now they get to welcome in TCU after having won a couple games, and they can go over 500. And just almost a month ago, we were talking about them being 2-4 and just not looking good, and here they are, and they've won a couple in a row, and now a big opportunity against a rival they haven't beaten in a really long time with a lot of pageantry. So the more you win, the bigger the games get, and this is a big game for them this Saturday, and that was a big win last Saturday.
All right, we'll get to, Garrett, the blackout and all that at 4 o'clock. We'll do that at 4 o'clock. Also, a note about Dave Aranda and the 2013-14 Big 12 championship teams. We'll do that following Ari Temkin, who joins us in about 15 minutes. 8 teams left in college football, unbeaten. Here they are. Army, they had the week off. Miami took care of Florida State.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Pitt, Penn State. Don't they play each other?
Miami and Pitt?
No, Penn State and Pitt. Is that they don't?
They don't.
Oh, I didn't know if that was one of those late.
Miami and Pitt do.
Okay, I thought that was one of those late year type games like a Florida State, despite the fact that they're all right.
No.
Also, BYU, we just discussed them. Iowa State, they will not meet unless they played in the Big 12 championship game. Oregon had the huge win against Ohio State, and there they sit. And Indiana won again with the win against Washington. Now, last week it was Fox Big Noon kickoff, and this past weekend it was ESPN College Game Day.
Yeah. Pitt has only played 7 games now this year, which is kind of wild considering how many teams are like maybe a little ahead of them. But they've got SMU this Saturday,
right?
Which is these are huge ACC games, and then 2 weeks from now they have Clemson. So, not to say that Virginia or Louisville or Boston College couldn't drop up and get them because they're all capable, but
see what you did, Cincinnati. See what you did. Yeah. When you didn't finish the job earlier this year. You allowed this to happen.
Or West Virginia, right? Yeah, both those.
Well,
games,
yeah, West Virginia too.
5 points total between those two teams in the Big 12 back-to-back weeks. Yeah,
I didn't want to keep picking on West Virginia. They're a little angry right now. I know, but there's banners flying, there's billboards, and all sorts of nonsense going on.
All right, the AP Top 25 poll. Couple of notes about this. A&M has moved up into the top 10. What an impressive win away that they had against LSU. Garrett was at that game. BYU is right there at 9. Iowa State tied for 11th. And you have K-State. Look where Boise State is at 15. SMU inside the top 20. Colorado. Now, do you have that audio, Garrett? This is what Deion said following the game and their win against Cincinnati about being ranked nationally.
We ain't thinking about the playoffs right now, right? We go one game at a time. We don't even want to be ranked. Don't rank us, please. We don't like that. We rather be in the back in the dark, just chilling in the cut. We good. We cool. We straight. All right, so don't rank. Don't feel pressure to rank. We're good. We're good. I promise you, everybody. We are straight. We're good.
Well, they're now good, inside the top 25 at number 23, and they have earned that with what they've done, and including the win against Cincinnati.
Imagine being able to lose 34-0 and still hang around the top 25. SEC.
Yeah.
Looking at you, Missouri.
What about
and I know Brady Cook was
41-10
injured.
too?
What?
And 41-10 too.
Yeah, they had that loss as well. But this one, you're like, oh, well, Brady Cook was banged up. Even though he played in this game, he didn't start from the beginning and finish it out and play the entire game. So there's that little caveat that I'm sure is the only thing the voters were counting on when doing that. But yeah, you have a team that's been blown out. So what's that total? 71-10 in 2 of their games this year,
yeah.
And they're still in the top 25.
Yeah,
that would not happen if they were in any other conference in America.
No.
So that's when people are like, well, what's this SEC bias in the polls? That's the SEC bias in the polls, is Missouri still hanging around, because if that was freaking Iowa State, their ass would have been out of there pronto. It wouldn't have mattered if Brock,
it would have been out at 41-10 with 1 loss.
Yeah, no. I mean, I saw that and I could not believe it, and yet I could. And of course, there was the Vanderbilt should still be in the rankings. They lost, and granted, you actually have a bit of an argument there that they played close, but that's the kind of thing where you get the benefit of the doubt, and that's how you end up with 9 teams that never leave the rankings, is because one loses, and then you replace them with another, or you let one hang around, Missouri or Vanderbilt, because they still got a lot of votes. They just didn't get enough, but they're right there on the still receiving votes. So that Missouri thing, that is SEC bias, is what that is.
The 2 teams that dropped the most in the coaches poll, LSU fell hard.
Good.
9 spots.
Oh, sorry.
Missouri fell 6 spots, and Illinois dropped as well. Missouri dropped 4 spots in the AP, and LSU dropped 8. So the 2 SEC schools did fall quite a bit, at least 2 of them. The furthest, Memphis. Metal, where are you? Man, they're close. They are close. They are inside the coaches poll, and they're 27th in what would be the extended AP poll. All right, there's not many bangers. There's not many bangers. There's a big banger. There's Penn State playing at home against Ohio State in a 3-4.
And Drew Aller's hurt.
And then SMU and Pittsburgh, which you guys brought up, are 18-20.
I think that the days of no bangers is a misnomer now. Because we've had a couple weeks where it's there's not this.
Yep.
Not every week can have an LSU and A&M and a couple other games, or, what we had, a couple weeks ago, which is the most fabulous weekend of college football ever. The parity is such, especially throughout the lower parts of it, where you have no idea what's going to happen. And Alabama and Vanderbilt can happen any week. Any week now. Well, and it's so
Ohio State almost had their Vanderbilt, but we're just good enough to win the game against Nebraska and Matt Rule. They were close, but not close enough.
Yeah, and I want to go to the rankings again and focus on the fact that you've got Oregon. They're nearly unanimous at this point at number 1, and Georgia the only one receiving a vote. Mm-hmm. The only non-Oregon vote is Georgia. They got 1. Who's the homer? Who's out there? Who's that one pesky voter? But Oregon's in full control now. Then Penn State, Ohio State, Miami. Guys, I'm talking about SEC bias because I do think there is that element where I saw this argument about, well, Vanderbilt shouldn't fall, and Missouri didn't have Brady Cook for the whole, all these excuses. But you look at where the poll started and why the polls at the beginning matter, but you look at where they are after actual games have been played, and you went from 7 of the top 8 were SEC the first month of the season to 1 of the top 5 currently is SEC. So it's amazing when you don't just say, let me look at my recruiting rankings and tell you who the best teams are, but you actually go play the games. And if anybody's got bragging rights right now, it's the Big Ten. They're the ones that are sitting there with 1, 3, and 4 in these rankings right now. So that's notable. Also, BYU finally in the top 10. It's been a long wait, it feels like, but finally getting into the top 10, moving up a couple spots, so that's great to see from them. Iowa State dropped in the AP spot.
Yeah, they did because BYU jumped over them, and A&M moved up 4 with a very impressive win.
SEC.
And then also Notre Dame jumped.
Yeah, well, they don't have to do much to just jump right back into anything.
Well, because A&M jumped, Notre Dame beat them earlier, despite the fact Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois.
But a quality win over Navy, who was undefeated.
Yeah, they beat the hell out of the
But Iowa State dropped, so, those two are on this collision course, obviously, and you got K-State in there as well, and now Colorado. So those are your top 4 in the conference, and those are your top 4 in the top 25 right now.
So we've been able to give you kind of a little bit of a summary from the Big 12 weekend, and also now nationally. We're not done nationally, then we break and come back with Ari Temkin. Bryce Petty, former Baylor quarterback, will join us today at 4:25. R.C. Slocum tomorrow, former A&M head coach, will join us tomorrow. Indiana is the first FBS team to start 8-0 at any point in the last 20 years and not trail in the game. They weren't as crisp and clean. Washington, it was still a nice, easy win, but they have never trailed. That's hard to do in case a team gets the opening kickoff and they kick a field goal or whatever. 8-0, took care of their business, and they have never trailed for 1 second. That's a heck of a stat. A&M with the win against LSU. I thought about the third quarter, mid to third quarter. I thought like LSU just had too much. Their wide receivers all look like Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. And then, my goodness, Mike Elko brings in Marcel Reed to start playing quarterback because Wigman looked a little bit out of whack. Looked like he was always...
Wigman's not good, guys. He's just not good right now, period. He's just not good.
Well, Elko defended him, remember, just about 2 or 3 weeks ago about people making fun of him. But you're right, he didn't play well at all. Looked like he was always like just not right. Marcel Reed comes in, runs basically an option zone read offense, and LSU looked like they'd never seen it before.
Well, Brian Kelly after the game was like, we can't stop a running quarterback. We just can't do it. Can't do it. Which, I mean, he's very candid. I guess we're going to go to that in a second. But here's what I think is wrong.
They're about to play Alabama with Jalen Milroe in 2 weeks, right?
But Connor Wegman needs, for him to be effective, he needs the wide receivers that LSU has, because he's got to be able to throw some guys open a little bit that, can run a little better. A&M's got some really good wide receivers. They don't have a great wide receiver. They don't have an alpha dog. LSU's got Kyron Lacey. They need a Kyron Lacey type for Alan Wigman because he's not a threat to run really on you, especially not run like Marcel Reed. You put Marcel Reed in there, you take a guy out of the secondary or you take a linebacker out of coverage, and you've got all this stuff that opens up now. So, yeah, I just think that Marcel Reed is the best option for the Colin Klein offense.
Well, if they play defense the way they did and they came out like a bunch of angry dogs, they don't care about the 15-yard penalties. They were looking for some heads, and they got a few of them. I mentioned earlier about the backup quarterbacks a team played with or without. Conundrum made a great point. Indiana did not play with Warwick. Remember, he was out, played with their backup quarterback, and still cruised to a win against Washington.
Yeah, they're incredible. I mean, Kurt Cignetti's done a really good job, and nothing seems to be too big of an issue for them to overcome or, bumps in the road or just that. They hit them, and they keep on rolling with a lot of confidence and just a lot of entertaining football. So they've been a great story, and very interested to see where this continues to go now with just a handful of games remaining and being right there in the thick of things at the top of the Big Ten. So that story's far from over. But, yeah, Wegman he got sacked 4 times. I mean, he's just not that guy for A&M. Marcel Reed clearly is the dude.
I was wondering, Craig, I don't know about can Marcel Reed, if they need to come back, throw the ball, and the first damn throw he made was a 50-yarder right over the guy's shoulder in a big moment of that game.
Yeah, and it's not like Wegman's out there throwing for 300 or nothing. Like, I mean, he's not throwing the ball well. So I don't think it really, is much of a difference at all. So, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that A&M's investing in their guy and trying to make it work, but Marcel Reed is clearly the better option for them, and that is just the way it's going to be moving forward. I don't know how you could present an argument to the contrary at this point in time, so we'll see what he's able to do once he's fully been given the reins, but that was an excellent win over LSU that looked like it was going to be a big win for LSU early on in that game, and then, A&M came storming back once they made the quarterback change.
There was a coaching change that we'll get to in the 4 o'clock hour. A couple of notes about Miami's offense. All of that and more. We'll do that just after 4 o'clock when we come back. It's Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. He will join us. Bryce Petty today, Phil Bennett today, and a lot more to get to today. Thank you for being here on a Monday after another great weekend of college football. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and used to be. I don't know if you're 40, 57, however old you might be, but 1 out of every 3 or 4 men, and usually once you get to that mid to late 30s, you might start to hit that 1 out of, 3 or 4 men that have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Your sex drive is not the same. You're having issues with ED. You also don't feel right. You're lethargic. Your energy's just not good. And something's missing. And, oh, by the way, it could be your testosterone. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. I just gave you some of them. There's others, too. You just don't have that, right? Dr. Kent Petty can help you with that and wants to. Contact him, PettyClinicLowT.com. They will set you up to get your blood work. They will take care of that for you. Dr. Petty will get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to help you get back to where you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Rule the road in a brand new Ram 1500 with an amazing 20% off MSRP. Or drive away with 0% financing for 72 months. Incredible savings right now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Our communities are facing unprecedented times. At Boozer's Jewelers, we care about you and your family. If you're like me, your home has unwanted or unused jewelry lying around. They can have value, and that means we can turn that jewelry into instant cash. This is a great way to get the most value from your unwanted jewelry. At Boozer's Jewelers, we buy all kinds of unused jewelry. So give us a call and let us give you peace of mind and cash for your unwanted or unused jewelry.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, joins us on Mondays in the last part of the 3 o'clock hour. Joins us again today with Craig and Paul. David Smoak, appreciate your time, Ari.
I don't have Ari.
Okay.
Yeah, I just text him, so.
Okay, all right, sorry about it. What's the bigger story that came out of the weekend in the Big 12? If you did, I know there's 3 or 4 or 7, but would it be Colorado becoming bowl eligible? Would it be BYU continuing to continue what they're doing 8-0, or would it be something that someone at the bottom that just cannot get out of the doldrums?
I am equally surprised by how good BYU is and how bad Oklahoma State is. Like I really like Oklahoma State after I feel differently all the time after watching them just collapse on television, and you see them in person. And outside of a couple guys, I'm wondering where all the athletes went. It's just
the injury list.
The injury list, or defense is second worst in the country right now, and by a long shot the worst in the Big 12. It is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, they're not good. They've got a lot of issues. I think health early on was definitely a detriment to them. I think Alan Bowman, I would love to go back in time to this past summer when we were talking about how we weren't the biggest Alan Bowman fans from a player perspective. Nothing against him personally, but maybe it's time to go. And you know what? If I'm going to be this bad, I'd at least like to be bad with like a freshman quarterback who's going to be the future and is taking his licks and is going to be my guy next year. Not a guy who's still around and still throwing the same. And Saturday really wasn't on Alan Bowman so much as it was on the defense and the run game, because he actually threw for well over 300 yards, and obviously Presley had a monstrous day. But it's just that much more frustrating when you're watching like a seventh-year senior, be the guy that's still directing the ship as it goes down. That's just, there's nothing to cling on to. There's no at least here's the young gunslinger, the young dual threat, the young something that we can get excited about. There's just none of that. But by far the biggest story is undefeated BYU and undefeated Iowa State. It's by far the biggest story. Colorado's a great story. Others are interesting or bad stories in the case of Oklahoma State, UCF, Utah. Although Utah being where they are, that's definitely a big story in terms of offseason and reality. But, yeah, I think BYU winning again and putting themselves in a position with a month left to be right there in the thick of the conference, but even bigger picture national championship hunt, as is Iowa State. I think that's far and away the biggest story, because they're leading the league, and in BYU's case especially, that was not expected. Iowa State was one of those 3 through 6 type of teams for people. BYU was like a double-digit team for a lot of people, if not down at the bottom, because you just didn't know what to expect. Mm-hmm. And they're right at the top, and that to me is the biggest deal. Yeah,
it's such a great story. Kalani Sitake, who we had him on at Big 12 Media Days, and and he was just frustrated about last year as anybody was, and you just didn't see that they would pull it out, and they're winning, and they're making people like it too. Paul, anything on? Yeah.
He's about to hop on.
Okay. All right. We'll get in pretty soon. Somebody asked, I think it was a couple of people, including retired stockbroker, but also got a note that when was the last time that somebody did not trail in a game? In 20 years ago? I'm working on that. By the way, Army hasn't trailed yet either. They have not trailed one time this year. No. Army and Indiana, 2 of the great stories right now nationally in college football. So we'll have Ari here in just a moment. Also, if you have not hit the like button, a lot of you on with us right now, we do appreciate everybody and your time. Hit the like button if you haven't. And then also, if you have not subscribed and you wouldn't mind doing so, we'd like it. We'd appreciate it, and pass along the word. We're now joined by Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio and TuneIn Radio. tune in. Thank you very much, buddy. Hope you're doing well. BYU slips into the top 10, my friend, in the AP poll. They're starting to take notice, finally.
Yeah, and let me just say, as a Bears-Kansas fan, this was a rough weekend for me coming out of football. So, yeah. Look, I think the Big 12 should have 2 top 10 teams. On TuneIn today, this morning, we went through and ranked our top 10 AP teams, and we had BYU, Iowa State, and Kansas State in the top 10. BYU has one of the top strength of schedule. I think people forgot that they've beaten SMU, handed SMU their only loss so far of the season. On top of that, they housed Kansas State. So, I mean, I think that alone, when you look at some of the other teams in the top 5, top 10, it's sort of egregious where they are behind a Tennessee, behind some of these other teams that for some reason are expected or thought of as having a better record. And look, Vegas still hasn't caught up with BYU. I had some friends reach out to me this weekend and be like, what's with that BYU UCF line? BYU getting 2 points as an undefeated team on the road against a UCF team that's 3-4. And my reaction was, yeah, it looks weird. But, I mean, the truth of the matter is Vegas still hasn't figured out BYU yet. So there's good value in money there on taking BYU +2. Maybe it was the idea that UCF had done a really good job the previous week with the running game. They'd got that going with Jakari Brown and RJ Harvey. BYU, who had been beaten a little bit the week before against Oklahoma State, against Ollie Gordon, played really, really well against them, had his best game of the season on the ground. So maybe they thought some of that would translate. But Jay Hill and that BYU defense did a fantastic job in order to make sure that Lightning didn't strike twice. They really did a good job, against that rush offense for UCF. And, I think Jake Retzloff and Chase Roberts and Darius Lassiter continue to be the most underrated offensive pieces in the Big 12. Do I think they're going to stay undefeated? I mean, look, their schedule, when you look at it, I mean, they've got Utah and then Kansas in back-to-back weeks, 2 not great teams. At Arizona State, maybe the toughest one they've got left. I understand the Holy War piece with a rivalry game, but, man, Utah looks terrible and really easy to defend. So, I mean, of the 4 games they've got left, the Arizona State game looms the largest.
Ari, we were just talking about Oklahoma State, and after they, just got shredded on defense by Baylor, shredded again, 5 losses in a row. This is the worst Mike Gundy team I can think of. Can you think of one that has gotten this far out of his control?
No. Yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because I remember the West Virginia game. It was like, well, no way that this team starts 0-3 in conference play. So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty remarkable that they're now 0-5. Look, they cannot stop the run. We learned that in the West Virginia game when they ran wild on them. I mean, Baylor did the exact same thing. Baylor had like 345 yards rushing to 74 yards rushing for Oklahoma State. So, I mean, Ollie Gordon's gotten going a little bit. We saw what he did last week. But, look, I mean, they made the move to Garrett Rangel, and it worked. I mean, it was a really good plan that they put in during the bye week. And I would love to see what would have happened had they been able to finish that game with Rangel at quarterback. But this is multiple times this season that Mike Gundy has not been able to replace Alan Bowman. Initially with Rangel, who just didn't play well, and then Rangel, who then got hurt. So, I think the biggest flaw for Oklahoma State this year, well, there's a few of them, but certainly one of them has got to be that their inability to get a better quarterback in beyond Alan Bowman. They have Zane Flores, who was recruited fairly highly a few years ago, and he's hurt and not ready to play. And then Rangel was the other guy, and clearly as a dual option threat, maybe he's not so much of a dual option because as soon as they started running him, he got hurt. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question, Paul. This is the worst Mike Gundy coach team we've seen in a long time. I don't think they've ever been, and I should have this number. I can't remember a time they've ever been 0-5. Hard to believe they've ever been 0-5. And look, it's not just them. When you look at preseason, the top 5 teams that were preseason top 5 in the Big 12, you look at it: Utah, Arizona, Kansas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. 4 of those 5, other than Kansas State, are now 4 of the 5 worst teams in the conference. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Oklahoma State. Utah, Kansas, Arizona, Oklahoma State, all picked to start the year in the top 5 all are going to finish in the bottom 5, all with one win in conference play, with the exception of Oklahoma State, who has 0 wins so far in conference play. Pretty remarkable.
So you said you're a Chicago Bears fan, correct?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Which loss was worse, the Commanders' Hail Mary walk-off against the Bears, or the Kansas loss in the Sunflower Showdown to K-State? I'm going to have to say it's the latter, Ari, because that's such a long streak at this point, and the importance, especially the way they've been struggling. But was it that, or was it the Bears versus the Commanders?
I think it was the Bears, simply because we kind of watched Kansas do this all year.
Right,
so
yeah.
Was it a huge shock? But to your point, Craig, I mean, now they've lost 16 straight in this series. Yeah, it was not a fun weekend. In fact, I saw somebody tweet like, "Man, this is a rough weekend to be one of those Kansas fans that is from Chicago." I was like, "Yeah, it was brutal." I was watching that game with my 8-year-old son who was next to me, and he was like, "No way they can lose this game. No way. They're going to win. It's over." I was like, "Dude, anything can happen in football. I know it looks like they're going to win. They should win, but anything can happen." And then they lost.
He's like number 20.
Did we learn our lesson? And I think the lesson that he learned was that Daddy cares way too much about football, which was not the lesson that I wanted him to learn. I wanted him to learn that you're never out of a game. A game is never over. But I think the lesson that he learned is that your dad cares way too much about football. But yeah, that was, I mean, in the Bears game, it was Caleb Williams played really bad for 3 quarters, and then he had 3 fantastic drives, 2 that ended up in touchdowns, 1 that ended up in a horrible play call where they had a right guard running it into the end zone who fumbled on the snap. So I was sick to my stomach because Williams is so good and has played so well in this stretch, and especially in a game where he played so poorly and then finally turned it on in the biggest moments of the game, only to have their coaching let them down. The Bears continue to be, as long as I've been alive. I was born in August of '85, so they won the Super Bowl in January of that year and basically have been this ever since. Their last impactful head coach was Mike Ditka. Like, they haven't had any good coach in that period of time, like a true alpha good head coach. Matt Eberflus is a really good defensive coordinator. He was around the Cowboys. I covered him when he was with the Cowboys as a linebackers coach. Dude knows how to coach linebackers, knows how to coach defenses, but is not an alpha, and he should not be coaching this team. Bears need an offensive line and a head coach to leverage what they have at quarterback, because they've got a legit quarterback for the first time in the history of their franchise.
So let me tell you my story about that Hail Mary. So I'm watching like the Red Zone or whatever, and I didn't know this, that once that I guess a certain amount of time they cut off the access on Red Zone. So it's 15 to whatever, 12. And I give up. I start tweeting our group here. Right? They could not handle it, And then I saw an alert pop up that said the score, and I was like, wait a minute, who has 18? I didn't get to watch it. Jennifer, my daughter, calls and starts screaming and yelling because you see it. I didn't even get to watch it live because of the way the coverage
time. You're right. There's a time constraint on Red Zone. So I think at like 6:30 or whatever it is, they've got to shut it off.
Oh.
So I can't believe, Smokey, they didn't show that at Red Zone. It was unbelievable.
And then I saw it 100 times after that, but it took a while. I did not see it. That's my luck, because they've been in a mess for 20-something years themselves. Paul?
Yeah. Well, I just watched it on regular TV. It was on our CBS affiliate, so you could have watched it that way. You didn't have to miss it. Just saying. You got too greedy there. Just got too greedy. Ari, what do you think?
I wish I would have been watching on Red Zone, guys. It would have been way better.
Yeah, absolutely. Ari, what do you think about some of the teams like Baylor and others who are now pointed up, as opposed to the ones we talked about, like Oklahoma State, Kansas, Utah now, barely hanging on or completely done?
Yeah, I mean, I think Baylor is in as good a position as anybody. If you're a Baylor fan that wanted to see Dave Aranda gone, well, I've got bad news for you, because, look at the rest of their schedule. You look at how they're playing. I looked at the box score. I was like, Dawson Pendergrass only had 6 carries? What are we doing? Dude averaged 24 yards a carry. He's incredible. Had the 55-yard run to win it, and that was one of the most improbable runs you'll ever see. Very similar to Cam Scadaboo in terms of his ability to run and break tackles. And then when you factor in how good at times Josh Cameron has looked, I know he didn't play, he didn't really do much on Saturday, but he's played really well. Sawyer Robertson's probably the best quarterback nobody's talking about in the Big 12. Again, it's hard. Like Oklahoma State is so bad against the run. And so this is another example of it, 345 to 74. But I mean, you had some ridiculous plays. That catch by Ashton Hawkins to break the tie was incredible. And look, I mean, Baylor blew a lead. Oklahoma State came back on them, and then they just kept scoring in order to make sure that they won the football game. So I think that was super impressive for them to get those scores they needed to, especially they got to within 3 again after Baylor pulled ahead, and then they get that long run by Pendergrass. So, when you look at their schedule, you look at how they're playing, I could certainly see this team running the table from where they're at right now.
Which is more interesting out of the Pac-12 for you? Colorado now being bowl eligible, and I need to stop talking about the Pac-12, but amongst that collection of schools, Colorado now being bowl eligible with a month to go, or Utah being in a race to the bottom of the standings?
Yeah, how about that one? And shout out to Utah fans who thought they would just come into the Big 12 and run it.
Talking a lot of noise. Ari.
Talk about being woefully unprepared for a quarterback that hasn't really proven that he can stay healthy. Suddenly they're surprised that they're playing so poorly with a quarterback that can't stay healthy and hasn't been able to stay healthy. I mean, with all apologies to Cam Rising, who's had a great career, the fact that they came into the season with a true freshman quarterback as their lone backup says a lot. Our producer on last week picked Houston to win this game, and we were kind of surprised. And he was like, well, I've got a number in here that I don't want to share with you guys, but we'll talk about it on Monday. And basically when we were picking the games, he wouldn't share it with us. But then today he basically said that through the games on Saturday, that Utah under Isaac Wilson has punted or turned the ball over on downs or turned it over 76% of the drives that Isaac Wilson has been the quarterback for. So yeah. And he was so bad, he was replaced by a guy in this game who was way worse, in Brandon Rose, who stepped in and threw an interception that basically cost them the game in a very low-scoring affair that was one of the more boring football games you'll ever have to be assigned to watch. You want to talk about watching football as a job, watching Houston and Utah on Saturday was absolutely a job. But yeah, I would say it's probably Utah in terms of being surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised that Colorado is this good. I picked them to be a bowl team this year. I certainly thought they'd be anywhere between 6 and 8 wins. So at this point, I guess they're exceeding expectations. I did not expect their defense to be this good. But we've talked about it, guys, all year. If you're not watching Shedeur Sanders and you're just reacting to the social media part, you're missing the boat. The dude is incredible. And he was so good in this game on Saturday. He had 5 incompletions, and he completed his first 15 passes, and he's doing this all under duress. Their defense is explosive, and they now lead the Big 12 in sacks with 22 on the season. So yeah, I'm less surprised about what Colorado is doing, and more surprised by Utah. But we shouldn't be surprised by Colorado. Anytime you've got an NFL caliber quarterback and the weapons that they have with Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn and all the players they have, the weapons they have, it's LeJontay Wester. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I mean, it's incredible.
They have been, and you can see they've gotten a little bit better when it comes to the trenches and guys making plays. Ari, great to have you when we can on Mondays, hopefully every week. Thanks for your time. We'll see what happens this weekend. Ought to be fun.
Yeah, appreciate you guys very much. Take care.
Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn with us on and looking past the weekend we just saw, but also looking ahead to what we have this weekend and next.
What a double whammy. You watch the Bears lose on a Hail Mary and then watch Kansas lose. I guess you can't really pinpoint one exact thing, but that Jalen Daniels fumble, I just could not believe that whatsoever. I guess I could believe it because that's part of why they've lost so many close games. But I don't think anybody, unless I'm just entirely whiffing on somebody in the out stretches of the American, something I'm just not paying close enough attention to, or maybe I've just overlooked. I don't know how there's a team that's had more close, worse, painful losses than Kansas has had this year. I mean, they're all close games that you should have won. And you talk about the standings being upside down. Kansas not winning close games is why they're at the bottom of the standings, because they aren't getting blown out. They had that game for the taking, and Jalen Daniels just inexplicably fumbles. I mean, granted, it was a good hit by the K-State defender, but you just cannot fumble in that situation. And, He gives them the ball back.
He started out turning the ball over early in the year, and it's never ended.
K-State turns that into the field goal and then eventually the win. And I just, man, that was brutal. But I guess if you're just sort of at this point, like that's happened so many times this year, you're just kind of numb to it. Then yeah, the Bears loss would feel worse. But man, that one on Saturday, that was pretty bad.
And then of course they stop him on 4th down to end the game when they still, had a reasonable chance to do something about it. That last drive they had the ball. It was just a minute after the field goal by K-State, and Kansas went 7 plays, 20 yards, and they just never had a chance after that. Eventually,
they had the ball, but they were at midfield. It's not like they were threatening with no time remaining on the clock. They had the ball, they had time, and Kansas State got the defensive stop. So.
Well, speaking of Kansas and Kansas State, our pod today, the Big 12, 4 pods. Monday through Thursday. The pod today is going to discuss that game a little bit more, plus Iowa State, West Virginia, the Big 12 North pod, and then Bryce Petty. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club. Man, they had themselves one heck of a weekend with all the homecoming festivities from Friday through the game day on Saturday, and then, of course, even if you hopefully you had a chance to go by the Baylor Club on Sunday. They had a huge brunch available too, and they'll be right back at it coming up this week. Memberships available inside of McLean Stadium. The amenities, the food, the cuisine, the chefs who cook it, it's delicious. And the views inside the Baylor Club where you can see McLean Stadium, experience game day, and even look across the Brazos and I-35 towards the Foster Pavilion as they're touching up that Foster Pavilion name on the arena. In fact, right now, the Baylor Club, Mike Mosel, the general manager, they did unveil new menu items. They've had a couple of tasting events to give you a chance to, oh, man, this is pretty good. And the Baylor Club, again, coming up with another home game with the game coming up on Saturday night against TCU. Memberships available, amenities, a great place to host a big event that you may have because that's what they do too. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. More information, you go to Facebook and also look for the Baylor Club.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Daniel Acton in the chat room. Ollie Gordon last year was a monster, and even in high school, he was at a game when he ran for 451 yards against Allen. Now he's mouthing off to everyone. Looks terrible. He was mouthing off even after the game against Baylor. I don't know. Maybe the offensive line's not as good. Maybe the passing game is not enough to help, although they threw for a lot of yards. Maybe he's entitled. I don't know.
Did you watch him last year? This is nothing new, him mouthing off.
What I'm saying is he's not producing. Had the big fumble at the 1 yard line that was critical. He's always been a guy that talks. But he's just not putting up any numbers.
No, he's not. But, yeah, him talking trash is nothing new. I mean, remember the Texas game last year and all the big trash talk in the championship game because he didn't have a very good performance in that game, and Texas let him know it because there was all the talk going into that one. But, yeah, I mean, that's just who he is, and that's who he was last year. Just maybe people didn't care as much or maybe just didn't notice it as much. But it was impossible to not notice on Saturday because he was jawing after every touch. He and Matt Jones were going back and forth, and then by the end of the game, there's all zeros on the clock, and he's having to be restrained by whoever that was, an assistant coach of some sort, as there's a gang of Baylor players that are standing by the tunnel, and they're all just chirping right back at him, and he's having to be restrained. It was just a bad look. I don't know what the issue is. Outside of the offensive line is clearly not as good. That's pretty obvious that the offensive line isn't as good. They also just don't have as good of a team in general, so there's a lot more pressure on his shoulders. I don't think that there's anything like stylistically that he's doing that's dramatically different from what he did last year. I know injuries have been a bit more of a problem this year. It just seems like he's always a couple times a game, if not like every other drive against BYU, coming up with something limp or hurting or whatever. I don't know what to pinpoint it to exactly other than just the pieces around him aren't as good. But, it's been a very forgettable year.
It has been. And, and you wonder, you always wonder, coming back, could you have left when you had the chance? Did you lose your chance to make big money? In the end, the NFL is going to look at you and obviously look at your height, weight, speed, and all that. But they're going to also look at some of the things that could maybe scare a team off or two. All right, let's get to the Big 12 North Pod. Let's start with Iowa State. They didn't have to do anything, right? They dropped despite not playing, and it's because a couple of teams behind them, including BYU and A&M, had nice wins. So let's start with the team that won, and it wasn't West Virginia. They did win. We'll have them. K-State, Chris Kleiman, he mentioned after the game, Tim Fitzgerald asked him after the game, is there something going on with you? And he said, yeah, I didn't feel good today. I was dizzy at times. He's had some health issues in the past, but a nice win and just a survival win. But that's all you do is win in advance, and that's what K-State did.
Yeah, look, you knew it was going to be tighter, and Kansas is a 2-5 team that has played, or 2-6 team that has played close in every game. They've had a fourth quarter lead in all the games but one, and in that one they had a late third quarter lead and lost it to TCU. So they've led late in the second half in every single game this year, and have only finished 2 of them. And that's really tough to see. But on the other side with Kansas State, that's what good teams do. You have a rivalry game. Maybe you're not hitting on all cylinders. Maybe they've got you figured out a little bit. Well, you just keep pace until the end, and that's what they did. Kansas State never in that game looked like they had an ounce of, oh, dear God, what's happening? How can we let this happen? It was, we'll get our shot. Let's just make sure that we finish it when we get the chance, and they did. That's the difference between Kansas State and Kansas right now.
Yeah, I mean, they took advantage of the Kansas mistakes, and they went and made the plays there at the end, forcing the fumble on Jalen Daniels, going down and kicking a 51-yard field goal. So shout out to, special teams, because you don't really think about it too much until you really need it. And to bang through a 51-yarder was a really big deal for for them. So Chris Tennant, shout out to him for knocking that through. And then you go and make the stop that I guess you were referring to a few moments ago, that Kansas had another shot, but they turn it over on downs as Jalen Daniels fumbled on 4th down at around midfield and covered it up, but it was the end of the game. So in closing time, Kansas State flexed their muscles. Got 2 bigs, forced a fumble. They got the ball back that set up the 51-yard field goal to take the lead, and then got the stop right after that to close it out. So great closing stretch from them. I do worry about Chris Kleiman. Even though he said that this is kind of a recurring thing, clearly it was something that a lot of people picked up on because he was sitting down, which you just never see that with a coach. He's drinking a lot of water, and just obviously something wasn't right. And so good to know that it's nothing more serious. But, yeah, definitely something that hopefully is – it's just that, nothing too serious. But, yeah, a really good win for K-State. They're sitting pretty right now at 7-1 and right there behind the 2 unbeatens in the league. But that was all about closing time, and they closed big. So kudos to them for that.
West Virginia sure needed a win. They are 4-4, and they were able to pick one up. And you wondered about what were they going to do. Well, they showed that they could fight back. It's still a disappointing year. Did not hear from the guys that normally send me an email or a DM or something like that when it comes to West Virginia, but they took care of their business, 3-2 in the conference, and now they get an off week, and then they will play Cincinnati on the road in 2 weeks.
Yeah, all Neil Brown's fans want is a win, and they also would like that to be at home. He got 50% of that right this week, which they can take, although I think I don't know what else he can do the rest of the season to get the fans in his corner, but they needed that one badly. And Arizona needs to go back to the drawing board and see what they can do to build, for the rest of the season, obviously, but try to build a Big 12 champion next year. Keeping Noah Fafita, all those things are important. Like, that's what their focus needs to be in building around him.
By the way, one note on West Virginia, then, Craig, your thoughts. Penn State, they lost to Penn State. They're number 3 in the country. Lost to Pittsburgh. They weren't at the time, but they're in the top 20. Lost to Iowa State, number 11, then lost to Kansas State, who's number 17. So their losses, I'm not into the quality losses as much as I am quality wins, but they have lost to some pretty good football teams so far. But bottom line is West Virginia fans don't care. They want to see some victories.
Yeah, the most important thing here is just for West Virginia is that they won. That's the biggest deal. That's the biggest deal for Neil Brown. No matter who, where, what, when, why, you just need to win. But to go travel cross country, we kind of wondered about that double time zone jump because that's been such a big talking point, especially for the Big Ten teams, of jumping 2 time zones and not having a very good record. You wondered. But then again, I felt like this was a toss-up between 2 pretty mediocre teams, and I don't say that. I think most of the leagues fits that category. I think most of the country fits that category. Your average teams, I think these are a couple of average to below average, and just kind of hover depending on what part of the season we're talking about. Unfortunately for West Virginia, we're not talking about a part of the year where they're back to 500 right there in that middle ground and have an opportunity to build off of that because of this win, whereas Arizona's sinking. Yeah, you gave up 200 yards to Teteroa McMillan, but ultimately it didn't affect the outcome. And I think the miraculous thing about this game, or not miraculous, but kind of the amazing thing, is just how good both teams were on late downs. You had West Virginia was 7 of 16 on 3rd down. They were 4 of 4 on 4th down. Arizona was 2 of 2 on 4th down. So combined, the 2 teams were 6 for 6 on 4th down attempts in this game, which was just kind of a cool little note from this one. But yeah, West Virginia was aggressive early on, going for it on 4th downs, busting out the fake field goal. And I guess the biggest thing was beyond just the clear need for a win and the clear aggressiveness and pulling out all the stops and making stops is Nico Marchiol. That was the big story. That's the guy they've been clamoring to see for a couple of years now, the young, highly recruited, next big thing at quarterback. And because of your injury situation there, you have an opportunity to put him in and start him this game, and he performed really well. It wasn't anything super gaudy, but he was really efficient, didn't turn the ball over, and I thought showed some really promising signs, and you got some big contributions for your run game, including a little bit from him in that regard. So nothing fancy, but they did the little things, and they capitalized on just that need to be aggressive, and were able to make just a couple more plays in this one. So that was a big win for them.
All right, we've already really done Kansas and Kansas State. We have just mentioned West Virginia. So who do we have next?
Iowa State? Right?
Iowa State. They did not play.
You said that at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I did mention at the beginning, but let's discuss them because here they are. Another one of those teams in the Big 12 that was probably looked at in the middle of the pack, maybe just below the top 5. And they get a chance to take a break and now play again. So Iowa State, the Cyclones, and BYU, are they headed for a collision course? Whether that collision course, if it happens, is a couple of unbeatens, I don't know. But Iowa State and the Cyclones got a chance to sit back and heal some wounds.
The only thing really preventing it for me is that Iowa State has to play K-State. BYU's detriment is they have a really easy schedule. They don't have but one ranked team on the entire schedule in the regular season, and that was SMU. I don't even know if there's another one on the list the entire year. Now that's where you go, well, the polls are anti-Big 12. Who are you putting in there on their schedule? Because it's not like they played Iowa State and K-State and those teams are getting disrespected. They played all of the middle to lower teams in the Big 12. So that's definitely going to pinch them a little bit when it comes to resume comparisons and why they have to be undefeated in a lot of ways. But Iowa State, they've got that Kansas State game that's still looming, so that'll be a big feather in their cap potentially. So that's why I say they're not on a collision course.
BYU beat the hell out of K-State.
Yeah, you're okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they beat. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to intentionally forget that.
That's right.
But I'm thinking more about like what they have remaining. They don't have anything remaining because of Utah being the big game you thought, and they're not anywhere close to that. So yeah, you're right. The K-State game, absolutely. The SMU win, absolutely. That's what BYU's feathers are in their caps. But they ought to close. My point being, they ought to close undefeated with what's remaining. Iowa State has the question mark as far as K-State goes. But other than that, yes, they are on very much a collision course. I just think K-State could have something to say about it ultimately. But Iowa State's sitting pretty. I mean, they're a really good football team. There's a lot to like about them, and it just depends on who you want to ask as far as if you think they're the number one team in this league or if you think BYU's the number one team in this league. And I think there's great cases for both. Coming back against Texas Tech at home after having a couple weeks to prepare, I think that's a win. So, yeah, I think that they're in good shape and just need to keep doing what they're doing and stay healthy.
I'm about to blow some minds just because I just want to, like, scratch an itch. So you don't want to put Big 12 teams inside the top 25, and maybe your opinion or whoever, maybe they don't earn it or whatever. That also could come back to hurt BYU, K-State, Iowa State, because they're not going to play many teams in the top 25. For example, Iowa State has Texas Tech, KU, Cincinnati, Utah, and then Kansas State. But all the way through the year, they played Iowa. They did beat them. But there's not a lot of opportunities to play top 25 teams.
Well, that's my thing is, like, you can have the argument about, well, Iowa State's ranked too low. BYU's ranked too low. K-State's ranked too low. Colorado should be ranked. That's all well and good. But the problem for the Big 12 is not those guys. It's all the other 12 teams in the league that are nowhere close to being ranked, that are taking up most of your schedule, as opposed to name a Big 10, name an SEC school, and they got 5 of those bad boys automatically on their schedule.
Sometimes, right? And so, yeah, and again, it's also the algorithm. You have the algorithm of who you're going to play. Some of these teams were supposed to be ranked. They aren't. What the hell? Just keep winning and take care of your business. When we come back, former Baylor quarterback Bryce Petty, they're going to have TCU Saturday night, 7 o'clock. They're going to have the blackout. They're going to also honor the 2013 and 14 Big 12 championship teams. He was a part of those. He's next. Bryce Petty. This is 365 Sports. So guess what I did over the weekend? Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I got some ribeyes and fillets. TexasBeefHouse.com. I won 3 big, juicy ribeyes, and then also a couple of big, thick fillets. I sent a text to Aaron Duvall, who's the owner, Duvall Ranch, and, of course, TexasBeefHouse.com. They had an online auction, 3 of them in October. I have learned this auction game and finally wore someone else out to get some great-looking ribeyes and fillets. And he said, I heard you were after them. Congratulations. Appreciate all you do for our company. And, by the way, some of you are customers with TexasBeefHouse.com. These were Wagyu ribeyes. Wagyu fillets, and that thing went all the way up to 6 o'clock, and I thought I was going to win. Then all of a sudden, outbid 2 or 3 times in the last hour, and I got them. I didn't give up, and the price was very much worth it. It all depends on how much you want to pay. You walk into a grocery store, and these steaks or what it might be, they have a price on them. You don't go to the counter or the butcher shop and you go, hey, I want to pay $18 a pound. You don't do that. It's whatever's on the package. At TexasBeefHouse.com, the Duvall family and the ranch just outside of Tyler, they will help you have the opportunity to buy beef, hamburger patties, ground beef, tri-tips, roast, brisket, steaks. And you get to pay whatever you want. And if it gets to the point where it's too much, walk away and do the next auction. They'll have more coming up in November. We'll tell you about them soon. The food and the delicious product of TexasBeefHouse.com.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, remember it was maybe a few weeks or months ago back when Baylor made the announcement that they would honor the 2013 and 14 Big 12 championship teams. We had Bryce Petty come on the show, former Baylor quarterback who was part of both of those championship teams in a big way, and we discussed it. He joins us today because this is the week of. Bryce, it's actually the week of. Do you feel any different than you did back when it was announced that the honor and the reunion was going to happen?
Just older and wiser per usual. But no, man, it's a great honor. We're excited to get all the guys back together and be a part of again something very special for us.
I ran into Hager this weekend in the elevator in the press box. I'm curious, who is the more valuable Bryce?
It depends on how much NIL I can get out of that. You know what? That's not a hard one. It's absolutely him. He's got the better beard, better hair, better lineage. You know, my dad's a great great guy, but Hager's lineage goes deep.
Bryce, Seth Russell joined us a couple of weeks ago. He tipped us off to the fact that you guys have been invited to run the Baylor line. What do you think of that? Are you planning on taking up that offer?
You absolutely know I'm not going to. I don't know why. I'm gonna trip once in my career, and that's it. So I'm not gonna go sign up to do it again. But I think that's a great idea. Actually, Levi's the one who wanted to do it, and Coach Wetzel and Javon put that together. So I'm excited those guys get to do that. But I'll take part in watching.
One of the things I've always loved about you is your own sense of humor and how you can be self-deprecating by bringing up the trip. I'm only going to trip once in my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, when bringing up my dad, if you get made fun of as much as I did growing up, it's always easier just to make fun of yourself, right? So, but I mean, it's part of it. It's all in good fun.
Bryce, comparing the offense that we've seen the last couple weeks to what you guys did, what do you think the similarities and differences are? And there are certain places that things just work consistently, different facets of it. Like the Steelers are always going to be best when they're a power run team, when they run the ball and play defense. It seems to me like Baylor fits having a wide open offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great point, right? You have to know your identity. And Belichick had a really great quote about that, especially for the NFL. It's a lot different than college ball, but you really don't know who you are in the NFL till week 8 or 9 or 10, right? Even though there's, again, the history of the Steelers and some of those powerhouse AFC teams have been different. But for us, when we were going back, it was always attack and wanted to keep it wide open, wanted to play fast, always keep defenses on their toes. And we just repped it so much. It really just became second nature. And so I think you're starting to see a little bit of that with Sawyer and those guys. They're finally starting to kind of, dive into it a little bit better. Understand who they are, what they're really good at, bringing back the wide zone, which I love for our guys. And we're starting to play downhill. We're starting to play with a little confidence, which is good. I think that's it. Again, it starts with confidence. It starts with belief, and you got to see that on the field to start to embody that and then start, dominating at the line of scrimmage.
What are some of the particulars that you've, enjoyed or maybe that have stood out to you about Sawyer Robertson's game?
One, just his leadership. I think the guys really gravitate towards him. And since he's taken over, each week he gets better. Each week he gets a little bit more and more confident, not to just, override that word. But I like him as a leader. And I think he can make plays both with his arm and his feet. I was actually at the game in Lubbock and got to watch him live. He's got a lively arm. And so I think just guys respond really well to him. So I'm excited to see, again, what that product looks like, against TCU. A little bit questionable defense on their side. So I'm hoping there's some points scored for us.
What was that atmosphere like in Lubbock? Because Lord knows nobody was expecting them to roll in there and win like that. I mean, a win was already a long shot, but a blowout win was certainly not on the table for anybody. But what was that like to experience up close and personal?
Yeah, it was great, man. I mean, they quieted, the stadium pretty quick. And I think, the word on the street for a lot of the guys over there in Lubbock were coming off the bye week, super healthy. Obviously, with Coach McGuire coming from Baylor, I think there's some some heightened, want to win. Not as bad as like the Bryles and Patterson days, right? But you want to show out for Coach McGuire, and I know all those guys loved him. I know he really wants to beat Baylor just as bad as we really want to beat Tech. So. But I think at the end of the day, man, again, just watching those guys drive the ball down the field, and again, just picking up confidence every time they got out there. Defense looked really good. They were swarming to the ball because Tech's got some guys on offense too. So we just played a really complete game, even on special teams as we scored too. So it was just an all-around good 3 phases of the game. Everything was clicking.
Bryce, it's the 10th year of the 2014 team. The 11th year of the 2013 team, and because of some legal things, they couldn't do 13 at the time until something was settled legally. But now they were able to do both of them together, which to me ended up making a lot of sense. What is this weekend going to mean, not just to you, but what do you think it means to a lot of players?
Well, I mean, I think for the players especially, it's just the ability to get recognized that, it doesn't come around too much where you win Big 12 championships. It dang sure doesn't come around a lot that you win, back to back. And so, for the guys just to be together, to get to kind of commemorate, being on the field together and what we were able to accomplish is a really cool thing. And then, especially with Coach being there, we're going to get to spend some time with him, which is fantastic. Just because there's just been a lot of things that have happened over the 10 years. It hasn't been, I think, what anybody's or what we expected it to be. Coach Rule, Coach Aranda has been great, including guys in the program. It's just different, right? So to be back and have everybody together, again, Coach Wetzel and Javon and all the everybody in the B Association and Baylor, University wanting to put this thing together means a lot. And so it's just kind of exciting to get to walk down memory lane for a lot of us that are older, fatter, balder, and get to remember what we did accomplish and be recognized for that.
Who of that, I mean, when you guys run into Baylor fans, like if you're out together, you run into it, what's the interaction like? Like if you run into somebody at a bar, restaurant, just out here, you're out at a game, what's the interaction been like between the fans and you guys?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it feels like you never left. A lot of people, were very excited about those times, that we had in Waco, especially those teams. So I think, for a little bit of it, it's like it never left, just a stroll down memory lane. But, for others, it's like, oh, we won, 10 years ago. So, to sum it all up, everybody's always excited when we get to come around. So I like when the guys get to, come around Waco and again, be, not big man on campus anymore like we were, but still have that same, vibe and energy from everybody.
You mentioned it's hard to win a Big 12 title. It's hard to win it back-to-back. Other than Oklahoma having 3 in a row and then one time putting together that stretch of 6 in a row before Baylor won it in 2021, the only school in the history of the Big 12 to win back-to-back Big 12 football titles is 13-14 Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to do it once. It's really, really hard to do it, back to back, and especially the run that OU had. Again, it's when you have the momentum, it just kind of seems infectious and contagious. And I would presume to say that most of those guys in the Oklahoma locker room have a lot to say, similar to what we would say is that there's a standard there, and once you create that standard. It is unfortunate how we lost that standard, but at the same time, it's so hard to get. But once you actually get it going, then it just feels like, man, if you're not with us, in terms of preparing that standard and solidifying that standard, then the team kind of cast those guys out. And so it's just a winning atmosphere. It's an infectious atmosphere. And it's something that again, it's hard to find, but when you do find it, you gotta hold on to it and run with it.
I know that there's the luncheon Friday and then gatherings on Friday night, and then of course the game is Saturday night. You mentioned Coach Bryles. Your thoughts about him being involved in this, and also how many players maybe I'm sure they've stayed in touch with him and vice versa, but seeing him perhaps for the first time since maybe 2016.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to be more giddy, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's going to be Coach or the players, but I mean, I've always said it, man. He was the heartbeat of our team. DNA. He wove into us a belief system that you can't just push out. He had everything to do with that culture and the winning culture that we had. And so I'm really excited just to spend time with him, to see him smile, be around the guys that, again, for a coach, I would presume it, seeing guys that are, 17, 18, getting recruited to, going off and then, having kids and husbands and careers and things outside of ball. I think it's probably a full circle moment, but, I do know that he's been through a lot. And so, man, any kind of glimmer of smile and excitement that we could put on his face. Again, like I said, I don't know who's going to be more giddy, us or him, but I know there's a lot of guys that are really excited to be around him.
What would have happened, Bryce, if they would not have included him?
Smoak, I don't know. It was one of our first questions that when we originally got, asked in terms of, we're going to do this 13-14 recognition and things like that. It was one of the first questions is who's invited. I think that it was going to be really hard not to have him participate in anything. But I think everybody kind of understands too that there's just, there's larger powers that be that have to make certain decisions. So I'm glad that he's going to be in Waco, and I'm glad that we get to be spend time with him, and we don't have to worry about the thought of him not being there.
Can you describe that the first title when you beat Texas in the coldest day I think I can ever remember until Baylor was in that bowl game against Air Force 3 years ago or whenever it was, and then of course by what you guys did in 2014, which was a team that got really close to playing for the national title. Which one of those is the one, if you could pick the two, that you savor the most?
Well, I mean, I think 13, just because of, a lot of guys remember getting recruited when there was more, visiting team colors in our stands. We were on homecoming, tickets for other teams. And no one expected us to do what we did that year. It was a full belief system inside that building, and really only inside that building, that we knew what we were capable of and what we could do. And then to go see it on the field, week in and week out. So, but it's hard to put that, those two teams and compare those two teams, because it was crazy enough is even though they were only a year apart, very, very different teams. But man, when you get to do something that no one thinks you can do, except for yourself, it just kind of gives you a little bit more of an edge. And so I really love both teams, but just in terms of answering your question, I'd probably say 13.
Yeah, and you win one. It's the hardest thing to do is try to win it again. Craig, you have another follow-up?
Yeah, Bryce, there's going to be a lot of pageantry, obviously, with you guys getting honored. Also, they're bringing back the blackout officially. They've kind of stayed away from that. You guys were known for having the cool uniforms, and then TCU also, and that just kind of added to the rivalry and just the interesting part of it. How much did stuff like that, the little stuff, actually jack you guys up or add an extra level of excitement, or is that stuff just all peripheral kind of fan conversation?
No, I mean, I think it's the Dion, right? The look good, feel good, play good.
Yeah.
And so Coach loved to embody that. He loved us, having a say in what we got to wear. He wanted to be, kind of the staple for, the first to do a lot of different things, but especially when it comes to, putting the chrome on and, it really just letting the players be and have fun doing it, right? So it's sometimes it can be a grown man's game, and especially with NIL and this like free agent portal or whatever, it can seem a little bit more like a business nowadays. But at the end of the day, it's football, and you go have fun. And so to score points on the board and make stops, you got to have fun doing it. And so we always loved, kind of not exotic by any means, but man, we got the blackout and the chrome. That's one of my favorite combos.
Okay, Bryce, back pay NIL for you. What brands do we miss out marketing with Bryce Petty?
Oh man, Aston Martin, Rolex, Lamborghini, you name it. No, man, I think most likely it would have been, barbecue, probably, or something, some kind of feed store, if you will. But no, I'm happy for those guys, man. I really am. I love that guys are getting paid. I love that we're paying players now, and we wear T-shirts to do so. But I think it's definitely changed the landscape. It's definitely changed the atmosphere, some good, some bad. But especially for the kids that I know, that, we come from so many different backgrounds, and not everybody has it as good as some others. And I was seeing, guys send their stipend check at $300 a month back home, so I love that they're paying guys. I just really wish that, there wasn't this like kind of Wild West atmosphere to it. Because they had so long to kind of figure that out, but I'm hoping they can kind of get a little bit more, not governance by any means, but just a little bit more trajectory in how this goes about the next couple 5-10 years.
Last thing on the events coming up with what happens on Friday throughout the day, and then of course the game itself. Is there a ringleader among the players, or who's in contact? What do you get? Do you get tickets for you and wife or kids? How is all this being set up, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, it's been great. Wetzel's kind of taken over in terms of his new position at the association, so they're being a big part of it. Obviously, the university is too, and then Aranda coming out and buying the suites for the guys. Like that's such a good look, man. And so Coach, if you're listening, thank you so much for that. Just to keep us together and in the play fly suites, underneath the scoreboard is such a cool setup. So super excited about that, but it's been top notch. From the moment that they've, kind of put this organization together to do it. Like I said, with Wetzel and Javon and some of the people in the B Association and the administration. So they've really put a genuine effort to make us feel honored. And
whoop, we lost him. That's okay. Yeah, we lost him. I really was looking forward to what he said about that, but Garrett, he's gone?
Yeah, he's gone.
The window?
Hold on. Here we go.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we lost you when you said when they were putting together a genuine effort to make everything feel like you're coming back home.
Hello?
You there? Garrett? Nothing? Okay. Damn, I wanted to hear that last comment because I've seen a couple of notes about, the communication or whatever. Bryce just said it's been a top-notch, genuine effort to make us feel home, feel like we're coming back home. David Wetzel, he's the one that runs the Baylor Letter Winners Association. He mentioned others in the athletic department, so looking forward to seeing a lot of those guys. I wonder how long it's been since some of the players have seen each other since they left to go play in the NFL or just left and went on with life. When we come back, we have a couple of notes from Dave Aranda from today on the Win. Phil Bennett will discuss the reunion coming up this weekend and all the events coming with it and look back at the weekend of college football. And this is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, each Wrangler has a trail-rated badge indicating that the vehicle has passed a series of off-road tests and capable of handling the toughest terrain. These tests include off-road traction, maneuverability, articulation, ground clearance, and water fording. Ram Power Days continues as they go to the end of the month of October. This ending, of course, on Thursday as far as the month. Heating up at Alan Samuels with more than 300 new cars, trucks, and SUVs available. Get a demo 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 for $16,000 off MSRP, and even get 0.9% financing for 72 months on the in-stock 2024 Ram 1500 Crew or also Quad Cabs. It is David Gray who runs the sales department, and also Ted Teague, the CEO, general manager. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
If you want quality and personalized service for all your air conditioning and heating needs, call Tradesman Services. They're a family-owned and operated company that has served Texans for over 30 years. Tradesman offers maintenance plans starting at just $12 per month and a free service call for all new customers. They're also experts in geothermal design, installation, and service. Visit them online at coolingwaco.com.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
I know some people don't have a sense of humor, and that's too bad. I think that's too often right now around our country, has been for a while. But let's do Vanderbilt first, Garrett. So this was from Saturday. They're hosting Texas. Texas ended up winning the game. They got out to Twin Ewers early through a pick and then got into a tremendous run. The Vanderbilt put up netting around what would have been the Texas tickets or seats, because they didn't want any trash thrown on the field.
Well,
now that's something Stanford would have done, or Cal, right?
Yeah. Well, also, Tennessee's coming up too.
Oh,
and
yeah,
they're even more famous.
Yeah,
for that.
that's even more famous. That was the one that we alluded to in 2021 against Ole Miss.
What other game did it happen in this weekend? There's another game.
Trash throwing?
Yeah.
I guess I missed that one. I don't know.
There was another one that trash got thrown on the field.
Well, it was is the picture a part of that, Garrett, of the stadium?
No, it was just this.
Okay, it's a hilarious picture. Texas took care of their business. They get a chance to take a deep breath and get back into play next 2 weeks.
But they got the full Diego Pavia experience and the whole.
Yeah.
They got Vanderbilt doesn't go away. I think that was probably one of the pitches when you came into the SEC. It's like, look, in your deepest, darkest moments, you're going to have Vanderbilt. And I'm sure that after that Alabama game that Chris Del Conte went, what the hell, Greg?
Yeah, we got to play them there. And, of course, the stadium's very small. It's just a very small.
And under construction as well.
Yeah, exactly right. But Texas, they took care of their business after the gut punch against Georgia. And then at Kyle Field, Texas A&M inserts Marcel Reed. Wigman, of course, was struggling. We discussed that earlier. And Marcel Reed, and I'm telling you, a defense that wanted to punch you in the face and then rub your face in something else, tougher than nails. They win the game. And here's Mike Elko after the game.
I think it's the way we talk to the young people. I think the things that we talk about, the messaging, how we bring really good people into the building. We talk about doing things together. We talk about culture, and everyone talks about it, but then we go out and we live it every day. And I think we back up our actions. We're very honest. We're very open. And this is a real program. It's not fake. It's not a politician running this program, talking fast and BSing everybody. This is a real program. And for all the recruits out there, this is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football,
well, there was it. Was he taking a shot, you think, at Jimbo Fisher?
No, that's why this is even that's why we're playing it. Obviously.
I'm asking you a question.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, it wasn't a shot at Jimbo Fisher. I think you can understand why because media is always looking for something to stir up. That any shot at like this is a real program or whatever can be taken that way. But I heard it the first time. I didn't think of it as a shot at anybody other than just like, hey, this is the real deal. And if anything, he's throwing shade at like Lane Kiffin or anybody else out there he's recruiting against, but I'm also not A&M brain, so I didn't immediately think, oh, he's throwing shade at Jimbo Fisher. And he had to come out today and clarify that he wasn't throwing shade at Jimbo Fisher.
Well, and Jimbo talks fast, he literally talks fast.
Yeah.
So it's not like when he said fast-talking politician, I think he was just using –
That's every coach in college football.
I think he was using that as a general term.
Yeah, no.
The fast-talking politician goes together in a generalization, but when people heard fast-talking, then they didn't hear the last part because they're like, Jimbo talks really fast.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, media's just looking for something to stir up and like, oh, did he say something about Jimbo? And then, like, I saw A&M guys who were apparently having a conversation afterwards about, like, was he talking about Jimbo? Was he not talking about Jimbo? So their brains immediately went to Jimbo. I heard it. I didn't think about it. But, again, I'm not A&M brained, so I'm not looking for that dig at Jimbo Fisher. But I can see where some people might have been. But, no, I don't think Mike Elko's that type of guy. And I think that would have been a really dumb position to even throw that shade. After a big win like that, you're going to be worried about throwing shots at Jimbo Fisher? What's he even doing now? You don't need to be worried about him. You got your program soaring to heights that they haven't seen in quite some time. Last thing on your mind is the guy that was there before you. So, yeah, I think A&M's best bet is to put all that to bed. And I just don't find Mike Elko to be the type of guy that was going to throw that out there in that manner, especially after a win like that. My biggest complaint from Saturday's game was I like the blackout. I didn't like the helmets. I didn't like the Aggie script to me because I feel like that's become kind of a trend that everybody's doing now is going to the script writing, and that to me felt like New Mexico State or something like that as opposed to Texas A&M. I just didn't feel like I was watching Texas A&M, even though I love blackout uniforms because it just reminded me too much of a school out in New Mexico. But I did want to get Garrett Ross's opinion because he was actually at the game.
Yep.
As an LSU fan. You're shaking your head. You like the uniforms, huh?
I did. I thought there could have been more like lining. Maybe if you took a little maroon inside.
I just didn't like the script on the helmet.
See, I kind of did because it made me nostalgic for we used to have the old script in baseball. And
right.
I kind of got that theme
I can
with
see
it,
that,
but
yeah.
I definitely get the perspective of other people who you want to see the TAM on the helmet.
I don't think I'm watching A&M.
Yeah, exactly. I get both sides of it,
but
definitely.
They won in those blackouts. So, was that your first trip to Kyle Field?
That was my third trip to Kyle Field. I had been to a spring game and a few years back, and then I had been to they play Northwest Louisiana.
This is your first real Kyle Field.
And this was the greatest sports experience I've ever had in person.
Wow.
Hands down. It was awesome.
Even with your team losing.
Even with my team, that was awesome. That environment was unreal.
What stands out amongst the top? Because I've been there too, and it's there's blowback on traditions and all that. But dude, if you go there, it's pretty damn cool.
The atmosphere around the stadium, the tailgate area they have set up, where it's like the park and everybody was intermingling. There's so many similarities between A&M fans and LSU fans. It's crazy. I never really thought about it, but till you're actually seeing it, it's damn, they're very similar here. I thought that setup was awesome. The crowd itself, the 108,000 plus that was there, where it was the third crowd in Kyle Field history, that was cool. The press box literally shaking, was surreal. It was awesome, man.
Yeah, I've been there a handful of times covering the game in the press box, and it is interesting.
It's
you feel
wild.
like you're on a big cruise ship. But what a nice win. LSU appeared to have things kind of okay.
Yeah.
Was it the change at quarterback, or was this inevitable?
So it was. I told Paul on Friday, I felt like A&M was going to win this game straight up because if you look at LSU, they should have lost the Ole Miss game, and then they played Arkansas. That's 2 back-to-back rivalry games, okay? And then I think officially this is a rivalry with Texas A&M. There's no more BS in it or being suspect. This is a rivalry. And I think that, and then when you look at the defensive adjustments they made, if Garrett Dellinger got hurt, the left tackle for LSU. He got hurt at the end of the second quarter, and he was replaced. A&M's defensive line ate him up. And then if you go back and watch, Garrett Nussmeier didn't throw a ball with his feet steady and still in the second half. Every throw he made was on the run, and he could not do it with his arm. A&M, once he threw that first pick, you can kind of tell it was off there. They had no answer for Marcel Reed, and Le'Veon Moss just feasted on them. It was a terrific game plan overall. LSU was outcoached, outplayed, everything. That was unreal by the Aggies.
Yeah, early on I was like, well, there's a miss because I predicted A&M to win that game. But
they're still in first place and pick them by 4 games, so nobody's sad.
Wait a minute. Who won it?
Craig came in second, but Chad, whose name I forget.
How the hell did I come in second? I didn't miss a game. I missed a tiebreaker. I had
You
4
missed a
points off the
bro.
tiebreaker.
Yeah, Chad beat you.
Wait, I went 9-1 and lost.
Chad, I want you in the steel cage, brother.
Lost.
Where did you go, Paul?
Hold on, I gotta look. I looked at it earlier.
Hold on a second. We're sitting
can't
here
win
discussing
it. You're
me.
a member of the. You cannot win it.
He still wants to win.
No, I still want to win it though. I went 10-0.
Yeah, but
and
Chad,
I was 4 points off the total tiebreaker.
Chad picked the right
So
score.
Chad was under 4 points. Chad, you and me in the steel cage on Saturday night at Madison Square Garden, brother.
Oh,
damn.
man. Yeah.
Paul, what did you go? Because I need to know if Garrett and I gained any ground on Jack and you. I know we didn't on Craig, obviously. I went 9-1, and I can't remember the game I missed.
I went 8-2. I lost Tech.
You're in
and
a
LSU.
free fall, man.
Yeah.
You are Utah football.
Tech.
Yeah.
What? So Craig got 10-0.
Yeah, Craig.
4 points off the score.
Craig, we had 4 people at 10-0. Chad Gullidge, Craig, David Matthews, and Jeff Messer.
Okay.
And it all
The Four
came
Horsemen.
down to the tiebreaker.
So Craig did not win.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Yeah, no, it's still a good weekend. That was a game that I thought I was going to lose. That's the whole reason I brought it up was I was like, damn, LSU's going to go out there and just win this game and just make it look easy. And then I, check back a little while later, and it's like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
Here comes the Aggies. Oh, Marcel Reed came in the game. Oh, wow, he's doing what? Okay, Le'Veon Moss is a badass. Yep, that sounds about right. So, yeah, that was a great win.
It was a landslide of momentum. LSU countered and scored and looked like, okay, this thing's going to go down to the last possession. And then Reed, I think, was that when he threw the big, long ball right over the top of the second?
Like a long throw.
About 50 yards, and they just had too much. And as Brian Kelly said after the game, we cannot tackle or cannot handle or defend a team that has a quarterback who can run. All right, so there we are with that. Well, we were going to get to a couple of notes from Dave Aranda. We'll do that later on. It is a Saturday night, 7 o'clock game. It's a blackout against TCU. A lot of memories of these two. Baylor hasn't beaten them much since 2010 when TCU pummeled them. They got them in 11. RG3 threw a bunch of bombs in that game. And even then it took a long field goal at the end and an interception by Mike Hicks. There was who was the safety that picked off a pass in the end zone at Amon Carter?
Terrell Burt.
Terrell Burt. There was that game. There was 61-58. And then there was the Charlie Brewer 3 overtime game. But I think TCU's won.
Let's put it this way.
8 of the last 9?
Every game but one since 2014 and the teams that they're honoring on Saturday. So since those teams left, Baylor has won one time
and that was a triple overtime
9 tries.
Yeah.
And in triple overtime, remember how close they came to losing?
Yes.
Max Duggan's cleats out of bounds.
Yeah, he scrambles to get out of bounds. Looked like he's going to score. He did, but the replay, Denzel Mims had a huge game for Baylor in that one,
When
too.
the teams that we are just talking about that are getting on to this weekend were taking the field for the very last time, this rivalry, from what I remember, they had the all-time by one game. Baylor did.
Yeah.
It was 51-50.
Yep.
It's now 59-53 in favor of TCU. They've dominated the last decade.
Including 2 years ago when they ran on the field with the clock running out with no timeouts left, and the kid calmly kicked a field goal to continue their magical year to eventually in the national championship game. When we come, did anyone else know that other than OU, when they won 3 in a row and 6 in a row, Baylor won twice in a row. Nobody else had won back-to-back Big 12 titles. Not Mac in Texas when they had their great run. Not Nebraska. Nope. They won a handful of them. I think 2 or 3. Not K-State. Nobody except Oklahoma. Then 13 and 14 Baylor. It's just been hard. But Oklahoma won 6 in a row once, which was a crazy streak.
By the way, if you've already done this week's Pick'em, go back in and do it, because I just went to review the picks, and there were several that we had to get out of there that are no longer interesting. Like Arizona.
Games. Yeah, okay.
Arizona and UCF got excised. Replaced, though, with Baylor and TCU.
They got
excised. Which again, got put back in.
Yeah.
So Wisconsin and Iowa. That's one that we put on there because
Wisconsin had a tough loss last week, wasn't it? Yeah.
I might do the tiebreaker on that one because the math won't be that high.
No.
No. Iowa can score now, though. Iowa can score.
Yeah, they're not bad.
They scored 40 this week.
Their running back's pretty good. When we come back, we're going to hear from Phil Bennett on, is there any comparison to 2012 Baylor and 2024 Baylor? Now, that 2012 Baylor ended up getting on a run at the end, won their bowl game, but they had a struggle early on, lost some key pieces on defense, and then also his thoughts about the two championship teams coming back for the game and the weekend with TCU. This is 365 Sports, an ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace. $497 is how much it cost you. Right then and there, if you're getting an MRI, you've been asked by your doctor, you need to get an MRI. If you're around where you could drive here in a couple of 3 hours or less, if you're around this area, why would you not use them? $497 or less in the average MRI is a little over $1,100. Now, if you're like me and you're my age and I have Medicare, well then, then the cost is basically negligent. But if you have an MRI, you need one for your shoulder, for your neck, for your lower back, or for your legs, knee, whatever it might be, Ideal MRI with a state-of-the-art imaging machine, and they are not going to cost more than $497. Think about that. If the average is $1,100, that's like $700 or so, and that means you could use that money somewhere else or save it at idealmri.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in the southern part of Waco.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
My man, Phil Bennett, former Baylor defensive coordinator, longtime college football coach on Mondays, joins us in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig and Paul with me, David Smoak. Thanks for your time. That's a good-looking Is that purple?
What's that?
That shirt you're wearing, is maybe the screen?
Psychedelic pink. It's a nice psychedelic pink.
Okay, it looks good.
I got it in San Francisco. My wife liked it.
So wait a minute. Did you get it or did she get it for you?
She got it for me.
Okay. Hey, is there any comparison, and I'm not trying to talk about the talent yet, but is there any comparison? Do you see the possibility of how Baylor can close out this year to what you did, different circumstances, in 2012?
Absolutely. I've thought about that. I have. The way they have played the last couple of weeks has been very impressive. And it's obvious that those coaches have done, I want to say this first, have done a great job of just what we talked about. Stayed on the same train, preaching the same thing, and the kids are listening. It's been two very impressive wins, and when your quarterback is playing as good as Sawyer is, it's made everybody better. Defensively, your kicking game, I mean, my goodness, the big running back, they're fun to watch. And in that game against OSU, you kept thinking, well, this could be a little bit like Iowa State second half. Never happened. So, yes, I'm down with that. I think that could happen.
Phil, your Aggies, my goodness, what a second half. Has Marcel Reed taken the job from Wegman, or do they have a situation where, they are still confident in Wegman. That was not his matchup, and it was certainly Marcel Reed's.
One of the things that I remember, I talked to Colin Klein earlier in the season, after Wigman had been hurt. He was really excited. He said, one of the things we found out, we didn't want him hurt, but one of the things we found out that we've got two guys that are capable of winning. Marcel won on the road, had a big game versus Florida. Then he came back and he's played well. And that's a good feeling when you have two guys that you feel good about. And I think right now it is a game of matchups. For whatever reason, Connor did not play good the first half. I think they made a really, really tough but good decision. The hardest thing to do is what's best for the whole and not the few. And they felt it. Connor felt it. Coach Elko felt it. And to put him out there and just to see what it did, not just for the offense. I mean, the defense played better. I mean, you could tell that game was perked up. And, I think that either way they go, I think you'll see both of them play regardless from here on out.
What impresses you, outside of the obvious talent that they've accumulated over the last few years, what impresses you the most about A&M's defense?
I think that one of the things that I like about them right now is they were a little bit like at times like I was early in my career at Baylor. We didn't have experienced guys. We didn't have guys that were going to be first-round draft picks, but they're keeping things in front of them. They're making people work for what they get, playing really good run defense. Their front seven is fitting well. They're playing a lot of kids, and they're playing hard. And when that game was 17-7, a lot of people thought, this LSU is the quarterback was on rhythm. There were a lot of things happening. They were able to put them in a stall. And that's what you do in big games. You find a way. I'll never forget my first year at Baylor. We'd gone up there and we ran into a buzzsaw at Kansas. And it was a game Art will tell you, we didn't play particularly well on offense. And we got down and we came back and we won the game, made a defensive play at the end of the game, and we won the game up there. The next week we're playing OU. And I think we were 30, maybe 29, 30-point underdogs. And we went out, and I told them, I said, if we can keep, in front of us and make them earn anything, and we did. We won a huge game. And I thought that sparked us on to a really good season.
Can you mention what the coaching staff has done? Because they've taken, this, you've been in the business for you're almost like most of your life. They've been getting picked on. And by the way, it's about wins and losses. What does it say that despite who they were, 2-4, looked like there was no clue that they're playing the way they are? What does it say about what the players think of the staff and Dave Aranda?
Well, it's like I said, if you remember, I don't know, it was before the before the Iowa State game. I think JJ and I both said we wouldn't be a bit surprised if they went up and beat Iowa State. Well, it didn't happen then. They had a good first half, but on that road, it says volumes. It says that they're keeping the focus, on the players and what they're trying to get done. And it says that those players are listening to them and believing them that if we do this, we'll have a chance to win. I used to tell kids, you talk to me without talking. And that's what they're doing. They're not talking right now. You know what they are doing, though? They're playing.
They are playing, and now with winners of 2 in a row and TCU coming up on Saturday night. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak with the great Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports.
Phil, they've beaten TCU exactly once since 61-58, though. And every team has a team that no matter what the circumstances, they're in their head about. For Nebraska back in the day, was it Iowa State or
Texas?
It was Texas.
Yeah.
It was Texas. For Texas, it was Kansas State. For the longest time, they just were in their head. For A&M, it's been Mississippi State until 2 weeks ago. Right. That just for whatever reason's in their head. How does that start? And how hard is it for a coach to combat it, knowing that it's almost supernatural in that regard?
Well, it starts by people like you and me and Smokey talking about it all the time. They say, here it goes. I remember when I was at Baylor. I mean, Oklahoma State the first 2 years. God Almighty. I think it was either 13-4. One of the years we haven't beaten them in Oklahoma State since 1931. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And we go up there thinking, hey, we're a pretty good team. I think it might have been in 13 when we don't play well and they beat us. So a lot of it has to do knowing what you're getting into. Obviously, this is a heck of a rivalry. TCU and Baylor, and I tell people my time at Baylor was so much fun. The kids were so good, but the two games that I remember being extremely disappointed were obviously the West Virginia game in 12 and the TCU game in 16 when Art wasn't there. We had this big discrepancy about, let's have a blackout, let's do this, let's do, the blackout. And we spent more time on that BS than we did getting ready to play and just got our ass kicked. And TCU was ready to play, and we didn't. And we had, up to that point, we had great games with them. But I think this team is capable. This game on matchup looks really an even. It could be a hard-fought game.
What is your favorite TCU memory?
My favorite TCU memory is 2013. We went up there knowing Casey Paha was their quarterback. They were talented. They had good receivers, good running back. They were good. And we went up there, and unfortunately, this is sad, but Art's brother had died the day we got there. And he was very emotional, and it was a big game. And we go out, and we struggle offensively. We don't play very good. And I think we had 5 takeaways on defense. And I know Orion, Ahmad gets kicked out of the game on the hit on the receiver, head-to-head. Orion comes in. He takes a pick 6 back. Eddie Lackey takes a pick 6 back. And our safety intercepts the ball in the end zone to win the game.
Terrell Burt.
It's sort of a 2-week run. The next week we play Texas in the closing the case down. And don't get me wrong, we were great on offense, but that day, we knew we had made a great contribution to having us making the next week big. And we go play Texas. I think it was 6-3 at halftime, and Texas had 2 first downs. So it really gave our kids confidence, that hey, you know what, we could be a championship team and a championship defense. And that TCU game was big. I know Eddie, I think both of them were over 50-yard returns. Y'all might look that up. But it was really it was confidence building.
Well, Terrell Burt's the one that picked off the pass. It was tipped in the end. And it made me think about this, Phil, because we've discussed some of the guys you've coached and some that were the JUCO guys, KJ and Williams, and what they meant to you at the time because they had nothing really. Then Ahmad and Orion, the running buddies that, my God. But the Terrell Burts, Ryan Reed had the knockdown pass in 61-58 that gave you guys the chance that maybe nobody ever even thinks about. But when guys like that make plays, and they were good, but when they make plays like that in a moment that gives them a little bit of that sunshine.
I think I've told you this, Smoak. One of the things that coaches around the country, and I knew we were doing it, we were evaluating kids well, which is the key to recruiting, and we were developing. I mean, we had Kaz Kazadi, the best strength coach in America, and his staff. And we were getting them and developing them. Ryan was not a highly recruited kid, but I'm going to tell you something. Ryan Reed was a baller. T. Burt was a baller. I can go on and on, guys that we had. I tell you the story of Xavier Howard, Carlton Buckles. I mean, he should still be sending Carlton checks. Carlton stayed with him, got me down there. We found out, and he should send me a check because I found out that R on his transcript doesn't mean remedial. it means remote building. And once we found that, we had us an all-pro corner. So that was part of the evaluation, and it's crucial. I mean, you go back to Corey Coleman. We identified Jim Gush, Kendall, all those guys. Art identified Corey Coleman early, and shoot, the rest is history.
Yep. Orion's interception was 82 yards and Lackey was 54.
Yeah,
you were right.
I knew
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was it was a tough day just because there was a lot of emotion going on.
Phil, there's a lot of emotion this weekend. We had Bryce Petty on earlier. We're going to have Troy Baker, Jordan Niver, among others, about the ceremony to honor the 2013 and 14 Big 12 championship teams. It's a long time coming. It's the 10th year of the 14 team, and they had to wait for 13. They couldn't do it. It ended up working where they could do both. What does this weekend, and I'm going to ask you some other things too, and so will Paul and Craig, what does this weekend mean, you think?
You know, it's a weekend of reflection and thanks. You know, I've talked to a lot of kids, and just the fact that that they're getting honored. I mean, it's just, you know, I talked to Art today, and it really makes me emotional. I'm just extremely proud of those kids, what they were, what the coaching staff was. I mean, it was a great group of people all the way around. And it's just, I'm very thankful that I got to be a part of it, and very thankful that I got to coach those guys. I mean, that they were everything that you want as a coach. You know, we didn't have babies. You know, you mentioned those guys and Nivar and of course all those guys. You know, were guys. Troy Baker, you know, tough ass. Mm-hmm. You know, all those guys that were guys that when you put it on the field on Saturday, you felt good about what was fixing to happen.
Art's going to be at an event. There's going to be a couple of things going on Friday. Obviously, Bryce Petty said that was one of the first questions about who's going to be invited, who's going to be there. What is it going to mean to him? I know that there's, you know, still some things that people either have to say or don't say, but what does it mean, you think, for you and him and others?
You know, as I said, I talked to him. He's extremely excited about seeing the guys. The best thing about Art Briles, it was never about him. It was about the players. And they will tell you that. That's why they love him. It was always about the players. And now, you know, there's a reason. I always say this, and I don't have to say this to defend anybody, but there's a reason why we had the #1 graduation rate, the #1 APR. I mean, our players, you know, they wanted to do good to perform for him and the staff. And as a coach, I tell people this. Anybody that's ever watched me, I'm hot wired. You know, I'm aggressive. I'm there, but it became a lot fun. You know, he rubbed off on me on a good way. You know, and we had a good time. I mean, and sometimes when I hire people, I always tell this. I laugh. They said, "Why'd you keep this guy? Why you keep that guy?" And I said, "You know, I don't want a bunch of me's. I want some guys that will complement what I do and what I feel like I can bring." And I think Art and I we're really looking forward to seeing the guys, sharing thoughts and maybe telling a few lies. And you know, but some of them, I know there'll be some BS because I've already know Ahmad and Orion will lay something down. We might have to have an ambulance out there. I don't know if they want this year-old man getting on them.
Well, that's all they're used to. That's all they're used to. If you're not getting on them, they're not going to be able to function.
I laughed. I told him, I said, "You sure you want to see my old ass?"
I think he will give you a massive hug.
Oh, I love him and fine.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan, I will tell you something. I've told this, and Ryan Reed knows it as good as anybody and can do it. And T. Burke, Orion had days where I truly believe he sat in the locker room day and goes, "Hey, I'm going to burn his ass today. Y'all get ready." and he could do it just with a look.
You knew that.
I knew it.
Yep. Phil, was there ever a chance that this was going to go on without Art being involved in some way?
You know, the group of players, and I can tell you how this went. Obviously, you know, and I want to say this. I mean, Sammy Citrano was when I always thought, hey, he's one of us. When I was there, Sammy was so good to us as a staff, and he was one of us. He knew everything. There was no secrets. I mean, he fed us. He lived with us. He died with us, and which I know he is now. I mean, he's a Bear through and through. And he had talked to some of the players that had, and I don't want to leave anybody out, some of the prime guys, and he up front, he told Mac, who I really like Mac Rhodes. I like everybody there and said, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't think they have a problem. Now, it's okay. The players I wouldn't get on the field anyway. I mean, and it's theirs to be recognized. Getting to see them at this event that we're having at Georgia's is what we wanted. That's what we wanted. It wasn't about, I didn't need the crowd, or I just needed to see these guys. And I know Art feels the same way.
Did you hear what Aranda, they're going to let the players, if they want, whoever wants to sit in that new area that's a new suite setup in the end zone on the south side?
I didn't hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know the exact thing here, but we had a report on our website that Aranda was going to pick up the tab, although there shouldn't be a tab, for them to be able to sit in that. It's kind of a brand new area that they built for this year in the south end zone that's kind of a suite type look. And that's what they can if they want to. That's
awesome. That's awesome. That would be wonderful.
How many tears will be shed this weekend?
You know, I told you, I guess when you get old, I laughed. Art and I in a month will be 69. I say 70, but I don't need to rush it. But, you know, it's just I reflect, and I'm very, very thankful. My time there was precious. The people were precious, the players. I'm just thankful. And I guess the older you get, it makes you emotional. You know, I still keep in contact with most of these guys. And, you know, as I told them, it doesn't go away. I mean, it's a life until they put us down. We're going to be lifelong friends. And we loved them, and they knew it, and they loved us. And I would think it's going to be rather emotional.
Yeah, and TCU being there, and of course there's some connection. Yeah, with Kendall and Cos and Buckles and a couple others. Phil, thanks for your time. It's always great. She did great with that shirt, by the way. Have the time of your life this week and enjoy it.
Right, I'll tell them. Thank you, guys. Maybe I might run into you. Okay.
Phil Bennett, I hope so. Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, defensive coordinator at Baylor. And they will have an event Friday. There's also a luncheon Friday. And then what they do during the game also on Saturday night for TCU. All right, 5:28 is the time. What have we not been able to get to? I brought up climbing and being dizzy in the post game. We've looked at we don't have the Dave Aranda audio. You have the Dave Aranda audio? You want to do that? Or you want to do a couple other stories, guys? It's up to you.
Let's break and come back with Aranda.
All right, we'll come back in about 3 minutes of Dave Aranda on the team on this weekend and more. And this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs. And I have entrusted them on more than one occasion in the past to fix up my vehicle after some accidents. And that was the case here in this last month as well. And they were able to hook me up, get it done in a quick amount of time, and get me back on the road. And I just really appreciate the customer service. And have experienced now on a few occasions firsthand, so I can vouch for the experience you'll have when going over to Richard Carr to buy a new vehicle or buy a pre-owned vehicle or just get your vehicle worked on. But right now, if you are in the market for new vehicles, they have savings so big, they are terrifying here during the Scary Savings event. Pre-owned cars and trucks at Richard Carr on the lot. There are a lot of different deals, a lot of different offers, and a lot to choose from. It's no secret that GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road, and with a multi-pro tailgate, first-class interior, and power to spare, the GMC Sierra is the truck for Texans who want to drive the best. You can check out a GMC Sierra today and save $8,000 on more or most of the 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock, and they have even bigger savings for the four-wheel drive Sierra versions as well. You can find multiple Sierra trucks under $40K. Just get in contact with them over the phone, on the website, or there in person, and they will get you hooked up with the new GMC Sierra and take full advantage of the Scary Savings event. Maybe you're in the market for, let's throw a curveball out there, an electric vehicle. Let's go a different direction. Well, they've got the Cadillac Lyriq, a must-drive. You will see and feel the difference of driving an EV almost instantly, and definitely every day that you're in that Cadillac Lyriq. Come see for yourself. Test drive a Lyriq today over at Richard Carr Cadillac. So those are a couple of the new car offers, but again, they've got plenty of cars pre-owned, cars and trucks priced to move, and of course that award-winning customer service to get your car worked on. So treat yourself with a new car or truck and find monster savings at the Richard Carr Scary Savings event going on now off Highway 6 in the Imperial exit.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? Invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, who invest their time and experience back to you and your money. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Contact Ben Erlinson at 254-759-8533. Brad Wilson's location at 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, and Cam Heathcott in Conroe. Edward Jones Financial Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, proud sponsors of 365 Sports. Edward Jones, making sense of investing, member SIPC.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
New arrivals just dropped at Barefoot Campus Outfitter in Waco. Looking for the best Baylor gear? Barefoot is the place to grab your gear. Game day polos, tees, tanks, caps, clear stadium bags, jewelry, and more. Barefoot Outfitters has all the essentials with unique campus apparel and offering comfortable garments and designs. Long-lasting images that people continue to enjoy wearing time and time again. Located right off I-35 on Spate, or shop at barefootcampusoutfitter.com and get free shipping on orders $75 or more. Go Bears!
Everything we do for you. First Central Credit Union says it's game on. Lower your monthly vehicle payments by refinancing your vehicle with First Central. Make it a winning season with refinancing set to your preferences. You decide the due date and frequency. Financed elsewhere? Save money with a new local game plan. Apply online today. We make it easy to score at firstcentralcu.com.
Membership and loan policy requirements apply. Member NCUA.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Call Deborah Holder at 254-300-7202 to see if you qualify to save up to 40% on your auto insurance.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Somebody asked, I mentioned this earlier when I mentioned the story. It was actually from A. David Hale that Indiana 8-0 had not trailed a second this year. Army's another one. And it was the first time in 20 years, and I have been looking, scratching, fighting to try to find out who it was 20 years ago. That's the year that USC won their second consecutive national title. And trying to figure out who that was, and I'm not done with that, so I'll keep working on it. If I can find it, I'll let you know. Now, Baylor, with a terrible start to the year. It didn't look like they were any good. They did not look like they had any rhyme or reason. All of a sudden, they've won a couple of games in a row. But that doesn't mean somebody, hey, they're going to win 4 or 5. Can they win 2 in a row? They have. Now they have TCU, who's been the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to the series. Dave Aranda, earlier today when discussing how this team is changing and getting better and finding ways to be able to win games.
How much excitement does a blackout bring and just kind of buying into that environment?
They're excited, yeah. Today, we have those helmets on this morning and the walkthrough. Everyone's fired up about that. I think everybody knows. There wasn't a whole bunch of words being said, but you could just – there's a different feeling. There's a different feeling this morning, and I think a lot of it has to do with what you're talking about. And so we'll take it. Yeah, we'll take it. I'm excited about it too.
Dave, it may have taken you a while, but have you figured out your routine, juggling the different hats, where being the defensive play caller, head coach? How do you have a regular routine that you keep?
One of the hardest things is to do the call sheet. And my son plays freshman ball for Midway and plays on Thursdays, and so I'd love to watch him play, and it's fun to watch him play. But then you do that at the cost of preparing for a game. I just think there's just the time runs out, and I think the time that you do have, maybe it's a morning or something like that you're using that too. And so I just think there's at some point when all of it's done, there'll be a good time to rest. But there's just at the beginning of the week I feel rushed. At the end of the week I feel like I don't have enough time, and it's been like that basically the whole time. And so I don't think I've found a good solution yet.
Dave, to the fans, these TCU games seem to mean a lot. What would it mean for you to get your first win against TCU?
Yeah, definitely want to win, and we're going to do everything we can to try to be able to do that. I look at the coach in Sonny. I have a lot of respect for him. It goes all the way back to Tech, and just knowing, the man that he is, and the coach, and the type of offenses that he's had, and then you look at the team, and there's guys that we know pretty well that we'll be playing against, and a lot of respect for them. And so you look at some of the struggles they had early on and how they have addressed it and come out and played, and especially this last game, and just coming back from all of that, it's going to be a challenge for us. And I think we're at the point right now with what our challenges that we've overcome, we're ready for it. And so it's going to be an attack mindset from us going into it.
Do those 2013 and 2014 Big 12 championship teams ever cross your radar when you were elsewhere? And how cool is it going to be to have some of those players back in town?
It's going to be really cool. I know a fair amount of them just through my experience here, but then I remember watching those games. I remember the excitement that goes, and I know there's a great love here in the community for those teams and those players, and so it'll be exciting to have them back.
All right, that's Dave Aranda from earlier today with his weekly press conference. I want to say hi to Brandon Manley. I was at HEB over the weekend. I was in line. He walked up to me and started talking about the show. He watches us all the time. So Brandon, who I met at HEB, hope you're watching. I know you watch quite a bit during whenever you can. Rice fired Mike Bloomgren. 2-6, 24-52, 7 years at Rice, consecutive bowl teams the last couple of years. But he's gone. Rice will look for a new football coach. Taylor McCarg will join us Wednesday, where he played there, and maybe get some feedback from him.
I think that somebody should hire Mike Bloomquist as an offensive line consultant right now.
Bloomgren.
I said Bloomquist. Bloomgren, I should know. I know a place that he went to school that could really use his help building into the offseason.
Utah?
No. He was a 1999 graduate of the greatest place on earth. Yeah. No, he's an FSU guy, so would love to see him go back there, but, I just have to now hope that, they're smart enough to hire him. But
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they'll have plenty of resumes to look through this offseason for a variety of positions. But, yeah, O-line's a good place to go and get a guy like a Mike Bloomgren potentially. I mean, as far as the Rice thing, I mean, okay, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, they were an afterthought to begin with. I mean, let's face it, guys. People that don't live here in the state of Texas, Rice is like the 12th team that you mentioned when you're talking about college football.
No, it is. Yeah.
Like, they're not even in front of UTSA or Texas State at this point. Like, they're pretty far down the list of teams when you're talking about the state of Texas. They do have the uniqueness of their academics, though. They truly do have a focus on academics that's unlike most other schools out there that does make it more difficult to recruit. Others say that, and then they bring in the same types of guys as everybody else. Like, Rice truly cannot just go get everybody else. So that's one of the challenges that comes with that job. But you're in the city of Houston. You got pretty wealthy backing, and there's some things to like about it. So yeah, I'm curious to see what the job pool looks like, and I do think that they made the logical choice because they were just sort of spinning in place, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I think Taylor has kind of alluded to as much. He's just, I mean, if you play there and you're sort of disinterested in it, then what do you think everybody else is thinking about it? They're not thinking about it. That's the thing. So, yeah, they need somebody that's going to go in there and shake things up, but you do have the challenges of the classwork and what comes with that.
I thought that when they beat UTSA, I really hadn't paid much attention to what their schedule was like or whatever, but I thought, okay, looks like he might get to another bowl game, but now at 2-6, they're making the move.
Well, and what is UTSA sitting at currently?
They're
3-5.
Yeah.
So beating UTSA is not what it was the last few years. This year, doing that's a little bit of a different story, and that was another close game, and they had a brutal loss this past weekend.
Oh, my God.
An absolutely gut-wrenching, throw-up-on-yourself loss for Jeff Traylor and UTSA. So, it's been a down year for the Roadrunners, but Rice beat them, but still, they needed to do something to shake it up down there for the Owls.
I'm trying to find out, and I will look it up at UTSA. When Jeff Traylor started becoming a head coach in football at Gilmer at his alma mater, he never had a losing season, and eventually played for state championships and won a few of them too. But I wonder if this might be his first losing season. I don't even think he had a losing season the first year at UTSA.
Does 6-6 count as a losing season?
No.
Okay, well, that's still possible.
It's a non-winning season, but it's a losing season. But he's going to have to pretty much he's going to have to win out.
Go 3-1 down the stretch just to get 500.
Get to a bowl game, and then you could lose like Baylor did in 22 and finish 6-7. One name that's out of nowhere random about what I saw Saturday during Baylor's win, Corey Gordon on special teams coverage. You don't see a lot of that. I don't know how many tackles he had or how many he was credited with, but I like what I saw throwing his body around. I thought that was pretty cool. Still blown away that Baylor had 345 yards rushing against a team that has always prided itself on not being able to have people run the ball against them.
Yeah, they got all the yards that they'd been, they've been saving up.
And I said this.
Yeah, that's been the case all year long for them. They've been terrible against the run.
Yeah.
Brennan Presley is a tough SOB, and I use that in a complimentary way. That young man is fantastic. Scored a touchdown in that game, had a 2-point conversion. He's on his back. It bounced up in the air off his chest or whatever, and he caught it. I love the way you play, Brennan Presley. Not that you're watching this show, but he was fantastic.
Well, I wish you could see him play with a bit of a better quarterback.
Just to be honest with you,
I don't think Bowman was the problem on Saturday, though, necessarily.
But, look, no, he wasn't the problem, but he's not the answer to any question you want. It's like watching a three-legged dog paint. Occasionally, he's going to do something.
But if
like,
that's
oh,
what
wow.
you have, what does it say about everybody else?
I know what Paul's saying, but it's just like Brendan Presley had nearly 200 yards of receiving, so it's not like.
But a lot of them were on short passes that he made happen. So it wasn't Bowman making these great throws or anything. It was him catching a short pass and using his supreme athleticism to make things happen where everywhere else in the field it just wasn't happening for anybody else. Baylor didn't have an answer for Brendan Presley. They had an answer for pretty much everything else, and that was the key.
Presley had 15 catches for 183 yards.
Yeah, he had 15 catches. So
a lot of them were like crossing patterns and whatever.
Short, and he got a lot of yards after the catch. He made a lot of things happen. I just wish we could see him play with a quarterback who could use all of Brendan Presley's skill set as opposed to Brendan Presley.
Imagine how many catches he would have if he played for DJU at Florida State.
I was more thinking like a Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders.
Like move the defensive back if that was the case.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, Brendan Presley's really good. I'm not trying to defend Alan Bowman. I've been on the record. I was on the record before the season started. We got yelled at by a couple Oklahoma State fans about barking about Alan Bowman. So that you can go back and check the tape there. But I definitely didn't expect to see them in this spot. Nobody did. Mike Gundy didn't. So why would we? And it's been a miserable year. And I guess we didn't get to this actually because it just came out while we were on the show, but they get Arizona State next, and that's notable because Cam Scattaboo is probably licking his chops after watching the way everybody's run against Oklahoma State's defense. But now we know Sam Levitt's coming back for Oklahoma State. So a game that I probably is leaning Oklahoma State, I'm now going to have to think about it a little bit more because suddenly that tilts in Arizona State's favor a little bit with their quarterback returning to the lineup. So, yeah, that's already a toss-up in my opinion, but that now, takes a couple bumps over in the Arizona State direction with Levitt back. But, I just mentioned that because that came out today, and it was up in the air as far as his timeline for return.
All right. Craig with Off the Radar tomorrow will give us an update where we are with the World Series among some other stories tomorrow.
Ohtani's playing tonight.
Ohtani is playing.
Yeah. I thought he may have popped that shoulder. He might have. In that slide in Game 2.
I'll say this. There's a stat. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, and I'll have more on baseball tomorrow. But I did see a stat, and I'll get it exactly right. But apparently 19.5 million people watched the game in Japan, which was an all-time record, as you might imagine. You got Yamamoto and Ohtani, and so there's a lot of star power for the people of Japan, and they already love their baseball anyways. But, yeah, apparently they did, all-timer numbers, as you could probably imagine, with Dodgers, Yankees, and, some of the homeland guys, I say hometown, but, some of the guys from Japan being involved as well just makes that for a lot of, the NBA in China. Baseball's got Japan as this big fan base along with Latin America, so they're definitely enjoying the ratings out in the Far East.
I was on my way home Friday. Craig and I we're part of a broadcast of a high school game. I'm driving home on the loop, headed back to my condo, and I'm listening to a radio station, and they talk about the World Series. There may be something going up in the ninth. When I had left the stadium, I thought it was still 2-2. And so maybe the Yankees did. Well, they did. They were up 3-2, and then they came back from the commercial break, the radio station, and played the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam. I was blown away by it. And then this stat, Freddie Freeman's home run on Friday was at 8:37 p.m. The famous Kirk Gibson home run against Dennis Eckersley in 87 or 88 was hit at 8:37 p.m. That's crazy. Two magical moments in World Series history.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool moment, and been an interesting little series so far, especially if you're a Dodgers fan. But, I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. And we talked over each other there for a second because y'all started talking baseball. But did the Cowboys win this past week?
Oh, no, they didn't.
Okay.
And they're going to continue losing.
We've done this for how long have we been dating? 14 years or so. I always send Paul a text on Sunday or whenever they're playing, and I'll predict the score, and I'm pretty good at it.
Just to be clear, that was a joke, but some of you popping in for the first time might not be clear on the...
No, we're not dating. We hate each other. But
That doesn't mean we're not dating.
So
I know lots of people
usually with the 49ers usually jump on their throat quickly, and they didn't do that. And I kind of got away from watching the game. I'm trying to sew a couple things up. And I turn it on. It's 27-10 San Francisco. Like, landslide. And yet, because they're evil, the Cowboys cannot help it. They cannot help it. They have to make sure they give you a reason to start watching even or continue to watch even when they've been getting their asses kicked. And what did they do last night? They got to within 6 and had the ball. Because whatever San Francisco was doing made no sense to me at all. And Dak loves to put up numbers when somebody tweeted this out. Dak is amazingly good when there's no heat on him. Now, I disagree with that, but he put up
Every quarterback is amazingly good
when other players are playing prevent defense.
Wilson is good when there's no heat on him. Yeah, but I mean, yes,
CD.
I hate. There's two things I hate. This guy is a system quarterback, and he's only good when there's he's great when there's no pressure on him.
Yeah,
he's an NFL quarterback. He should be great when there's no pressure on him. One, and you tell me one quarterback or one player in the history of sports that was great in spite of their terrible coaching system.
Archie Manning and let me see.
Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a terrible coaching system on offense.
I was joking. As far as the overall results, they were not
great
the
quarterback on a bad team. Golly, that's going to keep me up tonight.
Look, it's going to keep you up. The answer is, if you find someone, it's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
There's not someone who willed their team. It's not a great quarterback on a bad team. It's a team that wins in spite of a bad system. That's the thing. Because you're a system quarterback, that means that you're winning. So who wins in spite of a bad system? No one does, even great quarterbacks.
Well, tonight we'll see great quarterbacks on Monday Night Football, Giants-Steelers. It'll really throw some great quarterback play out there later on this evening.
Ezekiel Elliott scored, so that's good, right? They had 56 yards rushing, the Cowboys, on 19 carries. CeeDee Lamb's happy, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't win, but he had 13 catches for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns late, right? I mean, he's thrilled. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top
5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. As has become our weekly tradition throughout the season, it's time to give out my Week 9 awards. Let's go number 5. The okay award goes to Mike Elko and Texas A&M. That was a huge win at home against LSU, a game that usually in the past they don't win. And usually in the past they don't have the courage to make the move they made, switching quarterbacks that LSU was completely caught off guard for. Marcel Reed was fantastic. They actually have the best kind of quarterback controversy at A&M where whatever they need to do to win the game, they can do it. Look, Connor Wigman was a little bit out of his depths against LSU, but I really don't think that was Connor Wigman's problem as much as A&M has some good wide receivers, but they don't have LSU wide receivers, so they weren't separating, so you need to throw a wrinkle in the machine. Well, what's the wrinkle? Well, it's a running quarterback, which Brian Kelly very candidly said they have no idea how to stop. They just can't do it right now, and that's how you get LSU. So Jalen Milroe might be licking his chops at the prospect of playing that LSU defense. Next up, number 4, the Bottomless Pit Award. 5 straight losses for the Oklahoma State defense. This is the second worst defense in the country. They cannot stop people running the ball. Baylor ran for 343 yards this week. You know, last time that Baylor rushed for 343 yards, it's been a long time. It's been a very long time since that happened. This is not what you call a dynamic rushing offense, but it was the other day. Dawson Pendergrass, I'm thinking the Grass Assassin is maybe maybe that nickname. I mean, I sent you guys. We'll workshop it. We'll keep workshop it. But the Grass Assassin, since it's Pendergrass, he runs like he's mad at the grass. That might be his nickname. I'll pitch it to Dawson as well. I actually have a chance to meet him, unlike Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, who I've given a nickname to. But Mike Gundy, this is the worst Mike Gundy team I've ever seen. Alan Bowman is like watching a 3-legged dog try to paint. Like occasionally he's going to do a brush stroke that looks like something, but most of the time it's just not going anywhere. Baylor really got after them the other day, and while Baylor wasn't great and had a chance to blow the game again, when they smelled blood in the water, they took the opportunity. Now just 2 wins away from a bowl game, which I wouldn't have thought just 2 weeks ago about this Baylor team. But Oklahoma State, doubt they make a bowl. I doubt they can really string together another win. They're just playing really, really poorly right now. Have lost 5 games in a row. Number 3, the We Hardly Knew You Award goes to Ted Roof. It was supposed to say enjoy your stay. Ted Roof, UCF, another team in the Big 12 that's lost 5 straight games. UCF's defense has not been good. Ted Roof was brought in to fix it. He is now out of Orlando, and they're looking for the next step. Gus Malzahn going to have to do some shakeups in the offseason because UCF might be the second most disappointing team in the Big 12 this year after Kansas or maybe Utah. I don't know. But UCF looked like they were on the upswing, and since that TCU win, they have not sniffed a W yet. Number 2, the best dang team right now is Oregon. They throttled Illinois. They absolutely just punished them over and over again. And that's a team you would expect maybe because of their defense to contain Oregon. That did not happen. They're playing with confidence, momentum. Dylan Gabriel is the guy of the moment. He loves these big games. He loves the spotlight. He's fantastic. And Dan Lanning, his personality has seeped into that team. You can see it so much. They are very good. And like I said, right now, all these things can change in college football. And number 1, the It Will All Be Better Next Year award goes to Mike Norvell, or it better be, but 1-7 out of the bowl picture, not happening for the Noles. The most precipitous drop from 13-0 that has ever happened in college football. And on the way to the worst season in school in the last 45 years for FSU. That's all coming up. Really bad news. This is the top 5. We say goodbye right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. I know that you have suffered. Over the weekend, LSU lost. Oklahoma, Craig's team lost. Nebraska gave Ohio State everything maybe not everything, but pretty close to it. They lost, and Florida State played Miami and lost.
Yeah, we don't have.
We're a sad sack.
Yeah,
I'm a Georgia fan. I don't know what y'all are talking about.
Man, I just love Oregon Ducks football. I really, really do. But
yeah, okay, let's all adopt. I'm going to be a Georgia fan. Paul, he's an Oregon fan now. What do you want to be?
He's a Miami fan, of course.
Yeah. You know what is interesting about Miami? I'm curious to see if Mario Cristobal can avoid what Mike Norvell is doing right now, because they've got the same situation where they've got all these stud players, but they're all gone next year. So what did you do? His recruiting classes have been better.
You're trying to.
No, I'm not. No, I'm absolutely not. No.
Paul's going to go with Ohio State.
I'm very curious because I want to
Well, why wouldn't he though? Why wouldn't he? I mean, it seems like they got now with Florida's down, Florida State's down.
His recruiting classes have been better than both of them as far as the rankings go. How many of those guys did he keep? How many of those guys hit? That's an important thing. So we'll see. I mean,
just don't pinpoint your entire offseason around losing like everybody to the draft and then going and getting DJU to be your new starting quarterback. That's a good start.
That's a good plan.
To not.
What would they have been if they had, not Cam Ward, because that would make a huge difference. But I don't know if they would be unbeaten if he was their quarterback.
They wouldn't be unbeaten, but they wouldn't be. They wouldn't be this bad.
Who would they be if they had Will Howard?
They'd be better. I don't know. Like they would be.
By the way, if everybody, they'd be 5-3 or Bowl
like
team
that.
or something like that. They wouldn't be that. They wouldn't be that great. It's not all on DJU.
And nothing against Will Howard.
He's fine too. He also did one of the dumbest things you'll see in college football all year long. So the jury's out on him. But gosh dang it, I just lost my train of thought there because you kept going.
While you're thinking about that, USC beat LSU in the opening week. We all made a big deal out of that, right?
Yeah.
Hold on. Where's USC?
Lost.
Notre Dame beat A&M. Both of them are right in the middle of the mix. Mm-hmm. Georgia hammered Clemson. Clemson's not out of it.
Clemson hasn't played anybody since, though. I'm curious to see what the committee thinks about that.
Now, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah.
So what was your point you're getting
at there? There's some games that we thought at the first games of the year that might be like sets it up for everything else, and those are great to win if you could win them, but you got to
I saw that all over Twitter, too. Yeah, that everybody's like looking at that back in hindsight now. I mean, that's every single year that, when you have these preseason rankings that just tell us who everybody's going to be good based on the media, that they're typically not right 10 weeks later. So that I don't think is much of a big shocker, kind of like the preseason poll, which I do want to say, as far as the Big 12, an absolute slaughter in terms of its accuracy. But who was voted first in the ACC this year?
Florida State.
Yeah. So, maybe it's not top to bottom as erratic, but the Big 12 far from the only wrong prognosticators. And it's also a lot easier, I've found, when you have like a built-in never move from the top 3, top 2 spots. Like the SEC. I don't know. I would go Georgia number 1. Well, geez, I wonder if you might be a little bit accurate or if that will probably be close to fruition. There's nobody like that in the Big 12. There's nobody like that really in the ACC right now either, although Miami and Clemson were up there. But, yeah, Florida State was their preseason pick. So that's obviously gone to the wayside as well. But, yeah, the Big 12 is definitely the messiest, but not the only one that's got some inaccuracies.
You cannot tell what's going to happen, not even if you think you do, because look what happens week in and week out. Garrett, thank you. Thank you to Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. We mentioned, I guess it was Thursday, in case you didn't see, the Tradesman Services, AC and Heating. Thanks to that great family for being a part of our show as we continue to add sponsors week in and week out. And those who watched on Twitter at 365 YT, Sikkim 365 app, and also right here, 365 Sports YouTube. Thank you so much, David Smoak, for Paul and Craig. Catalina and Smoak, have a great night. Good night.